On top of Old Horror Hill, in a secret laboratory, Professor Weirdo and Count Kook were in their...
Hi, welcome to TMR Podcast number 8. Today we're talking about capitalism, libertarianism, and maybe a little bit of socialism.
I don't know. Things associated with the whole anarcho-capitalistic libertarian. There's a lot of buzzwords there. And most people out there know what we're talking about. There'd be works of various people like, presently the most popular probably Stefan Molyneux, but previously, Murray Rothbard, the whole Frederick Hayek, von Mises, Ron Paul, Ayn Rand, people in that neighborhood. And we got Sergio Leone. Am I pronouncing Leone right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sweet as. So, I don't know exactly where to start. Perhaps, Sergio, you can take us off with some, maybe, how would you say, what are the fundamental principles of these belief systems, or perhaps your belief system, as in regards to how society and economics are structured?
Well, I got something which is I guess the overall context that I'd start with is, alright, so everyone has political beliefs, or most people have political beliefs of some kind or another. And you notice that the way they are about those political beliefs is not the same way that they are about the things that they actually are passionate and excited about in life. It's kind of like this horrible, very serious monster takes over them, and they become very argumentative, they become very negative and heated. And you're like, what the hell is going on with these people? They're not being themselves. It's like something else has taken over them in that moment.
But don't you think that that's part of their whole, people know more about football than what they knew about politics. So aren't they picking a team when they're arguing a point about Labour, Liberal, Greens, when they're talking political? They're taking a team, and whatever the team is pushing is what they're standing firm in the ground on.
They do the same thing with sports too. I've seen people do the same thing with sports.
That's what I mean. I'm doing that relation. You barrack for one team or you barrack for the other. So whatever that team believes, status quo of that team, you're planting your feet. You can't even think for yourself because you're just arguing a point.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Exactly. But not just arguing a point. When you see people talking about politics and they're getting all heated, it's because I don't think they're talking about politics. They're talking about something much more personal and using politics as a cover.
Just because the original, we're trying to, get at the foundations of whatever it is that these worldviews are and where they come from. Mm-hmm. And so what you said initially was what is number one characteristic of it is that people are almost emotionally wedded to political beliefs once they are adopted.
Yeah.
And perhaps you can continue and talk about libertarianism and what type of people are emotionally wedded to them and what those beliefs generally are. So.
Well, okay, so consider that the kind of emotions that people have with politics, in my experience, are not wow, I've had the most amazing experience. I'm touched, delighted, moved, inspired. Life is amazing. That's not how people are when they're having conversations about politics. They're not wow, I'm just dominating and winning in the best way because I just made something fucking awesome. They're not like that with politics. They're judgmental, they're whiny, they're bitchy, they're cynical, they're rude, they undercut each other, they're passive aggressive. People use all these kind of tricks to just win and avoid losing, and they get all I'm not going to listen to what you have to say, I'm just going to pretend to listen so that I can just hear whatever I need to hear, and then I can say my point, which is going to prove your point is wrong. That's how they are. They're not being decent people when they're talking about politics in general. There's rare exceptions. And it's this is why I say it's like something else is running them in that moment. They're not themselves. They're not their higher self in that moment. And you'll see someone being their higher self about the things that they actually care about when they're going out in the world and just doing it. When they're going out because they care about education, so they go out and actually educate kids in a way that they see fit, and they love it. They're not I'm doing this serious, burdensome project that's so negative, but I must do it as a duty. No, they're I'm helping kids and I bring a smile to their face and it's fucking great. And that's what they're doing. And that's not in the world of politics.
But perhaps
it's a different thing.
What you said, I'm not going to disagree with at all. You're totally right about the attitude of people that do talk about these things. You know, when you hear a conversation about economics between a very sort of neoliberal capitalist-minded person and a socialist, it's like you're witnessing the Fifth World War going on.
You're about swords and shields are about to come out.
But at the end of the day, we live within a system, a structure that how it works has a huge impact on us.
Yeah.
You know, how economics and government is run, it may to a large extent be the difference between, a person living or dying. We may have governments that conscript people. We may have economic systems that, are brutal in lean times and people are basically killing each other for resources.
Very serious stuff.
We could have, totalitarian states that spy on us, which is another trend. And so, being not disengaged, but being only engaged in your primary passions and saying, well, fuck it, this government thing isn't that important to me. I don't think that is a solution either. I would say, we should talk about it. I agree that we need to have, a lighter discourse. I do completely agree that we need to ditch the good guy, bad guy mentality that seems to be prevalent in thinking in Western society. You will notice that it's not just politics, man. It's like the spiritual people that either, you have people that believe that quantum physics is the domain of fairies that make your wishes come true, and other people that it's a domain of Excel tables and probability distributions, and then you have global warming. You've got people on one side that think it's the biggest con perpetrated by the bureaucrats in the UN and billionaires and that the fact the ice isn't really melting, it's like an optical illusion.
Yeah.
But then you got the guys on the other side that, out of 100 scientists, if one of them says that we're headed into a catastrophe, they'll put him on stage and they'll scream like he's a rock star. And
I think you're overcomplicating it.
But what I'm saying is that all these issues in the world, and I brought up two things that intellectuals talk about, smart people that do talk about things like quantum physics and global warming. But even amongst smart, normally analytical people, there is a polarization into Team A or Team B.
Yeah, I think you hit it in the head right at the start when you said you've got good and bad, right? The power that's in, say, the party that's in at the moment, they're good, we voted for them, or whatever, right? And then the opposition's the bad. And then next time around, the bad guys are the good guys, and the good guys are the bad guys. And I think a lot of people, because they don't pay attention to the way the politics is run, they, to me, it's like used car salesmen, right? Selling dodgy cars to dodgy real estate salesmen. And all they do is they pick from other parties, they pick from other countries, what works, what doesn't work, how can we threaten, how can we make the opposition look bad, and it's just this. It doesn't seem like there's one academic in there that's going, oh, wait a minute.
But there's a lot of smart people that buy a fundamentalist argument. And what I'm trying to say is that we live in a world where educated people that are capable of thinking critically at their 9-to-5 job are having the mental disposition of Taliban when they're talking about global warming or politics.
Yeah, they're being weird about it.
Yeah,
really weird. They're not an ambassador for life. They're not like, oh yeah, this person right now who's really bitching about the environment and is really fucking cranky about it. I really want to be like you. That's not my experience when I see someone like that. I'm like, okay, so you're obviously having a lot of stuff about something, and you're saying it's about the environment, but I don't know about that. And the thing is, the problem is, a lot of these people, for all these different causes that they care about, the thing is, they're right to care about the things they care about, but something else takes over their caring and uses it for another purpose, for its own sake. This is what I'm hinting at, or pointing to, as it's a force that's in every person. It's the desire for control at all costs.
Isn't that an ego thing?
It's a part of the ego. The ego, I think, is a really messy word because it means so many different things. But let's purify this concept all the way to control and domination at all costs. There's a certain drive in us that has that, and it tends to get activated whenever we have a survival threat. So whenever you're afraid, or when you afraid for your life is supposed to is how it's supposed to be run. But because we're social animals, whenever you feel like your social position is going to be compromised, or your reproductive success, or your resources, or whatever is going to be compromised, there's like some sort of threat. And the part of your brain that's concerned with pure, raw survival is going to kick in and do what it's going to do. And that's all fine and well. That's what it's meant to do. But what's happened in our civilization is that part of the brain, through language tricks, has been told to get far more active than it needs to be for all kinds of things that are not real threats. So you end up believing something negative about yourself. And when that happens, it's like a feedback loop is created in your brain between the survival part and your thinking brain. So your thinking brain has a negative belief about you. Maybe you're told from a young age, selfishness is bad, and you're really given that evil eye and all that sort of stuff that really just dramatically made it more severe for you. If that happens for you, what your brain's going to do, like any animal that you do that to would freak the fuck out, so will a human, a baby. So you start getting worried about things. You start thinking, oh, there's something wrong here. I'm not in a safe environment. That part of the brain wakes up and starts scanning for threats. Then, as soon as you can understand language, you're taught every act of asserting myself and my own will against my parents who are just simply not listening to me or whatever, because that's what parents do. Most of them times to toddlers who are having tantrums or whatever. They just don't listen. But so the parents don't listen, or they just project their own crap onto the kids. And basically they'll come up with some moral commandment of some form or another, either through body language or through words, that asserting yourself is wrong, you are being selfish, you are bad for being selfish. These are all linked together, artificially, through language. So the act of self-assertion, which is just about creating boundaries and carving out a space for yourself in life, becomes the first sin that is artificially, through language, connected with bad and shame, the shame button, which exists in us for some reason that probably has a purpose. And so you've linked assertiveness with shame. And then you have, every time you assert yourself, you hit the shame button, and your fight or flight response wakes up and goes, fuck, something's wrong here, I've got to take control. And then you get this controlling mind virus that starts creeping through the brain, looking for evidence, and then inventing more things, picking up more things from language and society. That grows and gets a life of its own. It's not you.
Are you familiar with the work of Mark Passio?
No.
He was a very strange background. The guy was an occultist. He was like a priest in the Church of Satan for many years.
Yeah.
He ditched that about 7-8 years ago. And he talks about this thing about right brain and left brain dominance. And I mean, it does it even with a million caveats saying, look, these are generalizations, but they work quite well. And the notion is that what you have is when you have this dominant stream of thoughts, which is controlling, asserting, being counting, analytical, and in a sense controlling every variable to make things suit yourself. The brain defaults if this control versus imagination, cooperation. So if these list of behaviors that are listed under the whole left brainness, are strongly dominant over what's sort of listed as right brainness, the reptilian brain, the R complex, starts becoming dominant in your mode of thinking, which is your fight and flight response. Which is why that these people that are controlling tend to be more aggressive, more strongly assertive, and he's like the typical examples of it, are people like in the security forces.
Not assertive, aggressive. Yeah.
But assertive and
They'll defend themselves, but like
assertive not of their own space and their own rights, assertive on imposing control and their will on other people.
Their beliefs.
yeah.
You know, and he's like, the converse is also true. When you are too concerned about the ideas, beliefs, and health and well-being of others, much more than yourself, if you are always dreaming up new things without taking concrete actions and so on, you get this right brain imbalance, all of these higher behaviors analysis happens in the neocortex. And when I said you get the R complex, the reptilian brain response, is when what happens in neocortex is overwhelmingly left brain. What happens when it's overwhelmingly right brain is you have this type of docile, submissive mentality. And your mammalian brain, so your like mid-brain, you know the way the brain is structured, you've got the R complex, the mammalian brain, and then the neocortex. Neocortex is essentially human, but what happens is the part of your brain which runs your emotion takes over as the commanding center of your personality. So then you have these type of master-slave mentality. You've got, too many people, after 2 decades of conditioning, sort of switching into these extremes of violent, dominant, asserting your own will, and airheaded...
Crystal people.
Yeah, like your typical New Ager.
Yeah.
And he's saying that, these... more or less is like the army, police state, the bureaucratic controllers, bean counters of everything, and the I will wish my world into La La Land.
The people who believe in the world in here, I'll manifest it just because I wish it to be. That sort of thing, yeah.
And he's saying that, this isn't two movements that generated spontaneously. He's like, this is inherent in the human brain structure, and it's the result of systems of conditioning under the hierarchy. There is hierarchy, and there is people that want to do the controlling, and people willing to submit themselves, and it just their brain like sort of switches over to a default lower human state of either full-on control or emotional submissive existence.
Well, submission and domination, they both happen in this whole world of survival. It's all survival. If you're if you're playing the game of survival, then you're either going to be winning or losing, and you're going to be either controlled or controlling. And the way I see it, it's a whole spectrum that I don't even want to deal with. It's not like I want to be like, oh, maybe we have a middle ground between being controlled and controlling. No, it's a whole spectrum that I want nothing to do with in my life. Because the way I see it, let's say you have a part of your brain that, actually, I can pause if you want.
Sorry.
Yeah, continues. You have a part of your life.
So here's how I put it. There's a healthy place for the reptilian brain.
Yeah.
A lot of people deny this, but this is ridiculous. Like, when I see a movie like, say, The Chronicles of Riddick or something like that, I see an example of the only way they could really portray that character is to make him into a criminal. But when you think about it, this guy, Riddick, has never actually done anything wrong in the whole series. He's never done anything wrong. He's only ever defended himself. And you see him as like someone who, he gets the game of survival, he's a master at it, but he didn't compromise himself in doing that. I don't know if you've seen any of those movies.
I've seen the first one. I've seen Pitch Black.
I saw it, the only reason I bring it up, I saw it recently, so that might be a bit like...
No, but I get it. Yeah. I think one of the fundamental wrongs in society is that people are not more assertive and more aggressive in defense of what their rights and their
they don't take a stand. They don't stand for anything.
And they if there is an authority, or, someone putting on a badge or a suit or whatever, taking the role of manager, they do what such a person says. Now,
I've done that before, yeah. I know what that's about, yeah.
But even in the context of where that is the done thing, a normal human response is always to ask questions. When I got told stuff that didn't make any sense, I just started going, well, look, I don't have a problem doing what you're saying in any general terms, but what you're saying right now doesn't make any sense to me, and here's why. Can you please elaborate the reasons for that decision? And it led to many productive discussions, and unfortunately, the reality is if you are articulate and you do stand up for your rights, what happens is in most people choose to avoid talking to you, and they just give up on the idea of asserting their will on you, as opposed to start engaging you in how we can all coexist more productively. But at least,
I think I know why with that one. But go on.
The choice of having a minimalist, let's say you have a boss, and that boss that doesn't have much of a relationship with you, basically just nicely asks you to do a few reasonable things, and that's it. Does not try to assert anything on you. Like that, at the end of the day, that's a lot better than being somebody's bitch, to put it in very blunt terms. I think the same thing goes in public. There is this norm where, okay, your car, your thing, your property, for them to ask you to empty your pockets or open the trunk of your car, you need to be under reasonable suspicion of a crime. You know what I mean? 95 out of 100 people are going to instantaneously, yes, officer. I mean, it's a very strange thing.
I would probably as well. You get freaked out in those situations, yeah.
And those people, you see what I mean? We have all these rights that are overridden by social convention of automatic obedience to authority.
That's conditioning.
And bizarrely, I even think that the police officer would freak out if you said, look, no, I'm in a hurry, and look, you really don't have a right to do any of that unless I'm suspected of...
There could be a way of saying it that would leave them floored, but I don't know what it would be. They probably heard a lot of... they probably got their guard up against a whole bunch of attempts to mess with them.
Oh, Phil. But because they're wearing a uniform, they already got that thing of authority that whatever I say you must do, because I am in an authoritarian position, because that's what I'm trained to be in. So as soon as you say no, and I've watched a few of those things on YouTube where people have filmed it and the cop has said, you got to do this, and the guy's just said no. Most of this happens in America because they have they have their constitution. You can't do this, you can't do that. Yeah. Unlike here, we don't really have that.
We do have a constitution.
We don't really read it as much. It's not the same as theirs, right?
No.
But they know their rights straight up. So when they confront the copper gets to the point where he gets angry. I'm so angry that you even would say to me, no, you can't do that. You don't have that position, and you see these police lose it, full on.
Hey, Chris, all right, we covered something. Actually, I think I was going to say let's talk about capitalism, because that was kind of but I'd say we covered one point that was kind of important that I want to summarize in one sentence. I think people should deal with other human beings like I'm a human being. You're a human being. We have such massive grounds both being human beings. And then that is some starting point. It's a much more natural, I look you in the eye and express my vision of our situation. It's a much more productive approach than I am boss, you are whatever, worker 351, or I am policeman. You are the... we build a society based on these artificial power relationships, which they make no sense. It kind of says that you are born with the unique quality of intelligence and analytical thinking. Perhaps a capacity for intelligence and analytical thinking. That's what's special about human beings. Truly special. That is like your crowning thing. It's if you look at yourself as a living creature, that is the one thing about you that's truly special, truly unique. And people are outsourcing that, like this, going like, I'm capable of thinking for myself, but I'm just going to do what the guy on TV says, or the guy with the badge says, or...
Yeah, but that's following the status quo.
You're
following what everyone else does. I mean, even your kids, they watch you, the way you talk to them, the way you bring them up, they see the way you react with other people, and they mimic that. But they mimic that because they think that's just the norm, and they don't... You know, it's very rare for someone to step outside the box.
I've got no problem.
You're saying kids just model what their parents are doing.
Of course they do.
I got no
what
problem
if they
with...
respond to, rather than model directly? So what if there is a certain kind of parenting that gives the kids nothing of your own? Like, nothing of your own. Just creates the space for them to be whoever they're going to be, and all of that, and models for them the useful behaviors of life. But ultimately, in the matter of who they are as a person, leaves that entirely up to them, with never a single attempt to cross their will. Only an attempt to respectfully invite them to understand who they really are.
Can I take this?
Yeah, it's hard.
But how do you
I've only seen it very rarely.
But how do you give kids boundaries? How do you tell them that, you know, what the right and wrong, what's right and what's wrong? How do you...
Dude,
well, if you're an adult and you're anything less than in the top 0.1% of happiest people, you have no business telling your kids what's right and wrong because you have no fucking clue. Like, unless you're like some levitating, godly, I know what's right and wrong because I've done it, and I'm just, it's life.
But
Sergio,
you don't know.
But Sergio, don't you teach your kids? And I look, this one comes from my father and my father's father. You don't want them to make the same mistakes you've made, right?
You told them the mistakes you made.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you do. And then when they question you and they say, you know, why can't I do this? And I go, well, look. Don't get me wrong, I was your age once. I've already been it, I've done it, I got my fingers burnt. You don't want to go there, and this is why. You know, you don't just say don't do it because, you know, it's bad. Bad's not an answer. Yeah. You tell them why and say, look, I've been down that road, or I've seen someone else go down that road. This is what happened. That's why I don't travel down that in that direction. And you just point out to them. You be straight up. I mean, I don't bullshit my kids.
See, can I just like... I have a... First of all, for the crowd, we're going to get to like purely talking about capitalism and libertarianism.
I'm really sorry because I had a whole heap of questions about capitalism.
I actually have a bunch. They're on the screen, and I will ask all of them. But this raising kids is really important. And Sergio, I can't say that like. Perhaps we agree in principle. Like if like you and me sat together and said, oh, there's a parent, there's a kid, there's a scenario. I would say we probably agree with 9 out of 10. But like, the general philosophical premise of like getting out of the kids' way and let them be who they're going to be. Well, I've got a problem with that. I mean, look around the world, and other people's actions and values are just everywhere. They are inherently always going to be a part of who you are.
Not necessarily.
Please hear me out.
Sorry,
what you are as an individual is your consciousness that is able to, at some stage, not just assimilate. Like, initially you assimilate culture and then you recombine it and recreate it and add your own thing. Like, you know, like, some people argue there is no such thing as original ideas, and I'd say, well, there is an original mix of existing ideas. The ideas exist. You're creating... We come into this world, and the world's like a bunch of Lego blocks. And we have those Lego blocks to work with. The Lego blocks we have to work with are completely different from the Lego blocks that people in China... Well, not completely different, but they're different. Yeah. And they're completely different from what Leonardo da Vinci had to work with. You know, like, part of his Lego blocks was a world that was created in 7 days by Jehovah. You know, like... That was what 100% of people believed, and I'm sure that even the 7-year-old Da Vinci assimilated that before he started deconstructing the idea and going like, this doesn't make too much sense. So, this computer exists. Somebody figured out the maths and the physics and the transistor circuitry within it. Our legal system exists. The way family structures with trial and error in thousands of generations. We got this thing where, we have dinner together and the kids go and do certain activities. And there are inevitably thousands of A ideas, B habits, and C, even moral values that the kids are just going to assimilate from the environment where they're in.
They're passive.
And because we're social animals too, we're going to fall in line.
What I'm saying is that what's special about kids isn't I don't think a fucking 3-year-old is going to be out there and he's supremely going to do whatever he does and be whoever he is. I would say that as long as you encourage open-mindedness and critical thinking, as he grows up, he's going to start deconstructing and throwing away some of the ideas he inherited. So I would say that like this, you grow up and inevitably, this is completely unstoppable. You pick up thousands of concepts and ideas. You suck it in. They become like a part of you. And the smarter you get, you're picking up new ones and you're capable of discarding the old ones. You gradually...
We do that all the time.
You gradually shape who you are. But I would say that especially at young age, 3-4 kids, having seen... my sister's got 3 boys, 2, 4, 6. And most of what they are, who they are, it's constantly evolving. But at those young ages, most of what it is just assimilated, picked up from parents or environment, kids. Most of what they do is sucking in information and imitating.
That's just just because people do that doesn't mean that's how it has to be, because that's not always how it is. Sometimes it's not like that. It just happens to be the case for them, if that makes sense.
But what I'm saying isn't... what I'm saying, it's kind of like this. Growing up is like a 2 or a 3-stage process, and I'm saying that sucking up of all of that is the first stage of the process.
Yeah, like a sponge. And then,
like a sponge, and then the critical thinking starts kinking in, probably as young as 4, but somewhere around 4 or later, they start questioning things, going, well,
that's
why am I cleaning up after lunch for the whole family when none of my friends are doing it at their parents' places? What makes me different from them? And when you see a 5-year-old asking questions like that, that he's already thinking. 2 years ago, it was just an automatic reaction. Oh, everybody's doing it, I'll do it too. Oh, if you don't cook, then that's what you do. I do this because it's the damn thing.
But Sonny, we're always constantly changing our views. If I was the way I was when I was 18, right, I could picture my life of where I've been now.
But what I'm saying
I see some of my friends that haven't changed since they were 18. You go, yeah, keep away. You don't want to. You don't want anything to do with them because they're living in the past. They haven't changed at all. And same as my father. When my father brought me up, the way he brought me up, there's things I really liked. There's things I really liked the way he did and the way he did it. And there's other things that I hate and I would never
do that to your kids.
Never, ever.
Yeah. But as I said, it's like stage 1, suck up like a sponge. Stage 2, and I think the best thing you can do as parent is bring in that stage 2 perhaps earlier than it normally would occur. But I have read a little bit of at least conventional child psychology, and at least the way it's understood. And conventional science gets proven wrong all the time nowadays. So I'm not even stating this as a fact, but the way it's understood is undoubtedly that kids start off as virtual tape recorders, and they become less and less and less and less of a tape recorder as they get older. And I'd say that it's not a question. I don't believe that a 3-4-year-old is gonna have is either born or gonna have some type of unique sense of identity.
It's a baby. Yeah, like that.
I think it grows. There's a seed of something who you are that only gets to express itself once you learn to deconstruct and question information, because you stopped only copying, you start forming your own shit. But I think, honestly, when you're talking about little kids, I'd say, man, they're tape recorders, and it's your job to put some good stuff in the tape recorder, and it's your job to teach them that, yo, kid, you're absorbing this like a tape recorder, and like the sooner the better. You start asking me questions and asking everybody questions. Why am I doing this? Why is it this way? Why are you doing that?
I really like that. That's a really good breakdown. Like, so you start out with a tape recorder. You start out as a tape recorder, absorbing everything. I think that's probably before language.
For sure.
And so basically, parents who are really loving and who just have a real hands-on approach with the world, do their kids enormous favors, and who shield their kids from negative aspects of the world at that age, a baby.
Oh, yeah.
Because the baby doesn't have the ability to think for themselves yet in a way where they can repel external threats. They don't even understand they're a separate entity yet. But when the baby becomes a toddler and they understand that they're a separate person, there's me and then there's the world and others, then that's when it becomes important for them to be their own judge of what they allow in and what they don't, and that they have a good code. They're mindful in what they allow in and not. Now, and then finally, as they get older and eventually there comes a point in life when they have enough information to create a complete picture of the whole damn thing, a whole philosophy of life for themselves. Some people do that consciously, some unconsciously, some wait for someone else to install it in them. Whatever it is, if you get one of your own, then it will probably not even be true. It will probably just be something that feels right, based on your subjective experience. But someone who's got a real good foundation at the beginning is really good at sorting out what's subjective in their experience and what's a universal thing.
Like objective reality by universal thing, yeah.
Exactly, and also taking out, okay, what are my own thoughts and feelings and physical sensations? That's just my personal test. I can't absolutely rely on them because I could be wrong, so I'll double check them. But I don't just double check them with what someone else has to say because other people are batshit crazy. So basically what you do is you can't trust the collective either. Most people make this mistake of, you just go with the flow. But go with the flow in a different sense to the nice sense of it. The go with the flow meaning conform with the masses of society. Just let the news, let society, let other people do your thinking for you. Accept conventional wisdom. It's essentially giving up your responsibility to be the judge of what you should be doing with your life. If you give that up, then something else is going to be running that, and it's not going to be you.
Yeah, so the notion I use the words outsource your thinking. Outsource is
not being responsible for your thinking.
I think that should be the name of the podcast.
Yeah, I think
outsource your thinking.
So if I could pull a couple of things together, right?
Go for it.
So what I see is that when we're born, we essentially have like an infinite canvas of possibility, and we experience life in that way, especially if we're loved early on. It's essentially like anything can happen. Anything is possible. All that you have is some hands, the ability to think and perceive the world and communicate, and you can do stuff with the world directly, and nothing else. And so basically, all that exists is the matter in the world. Whatever this, it's not even table for us. It's just matter. It's just a bunch of colors or whatever to us. But what we know is that we're counting on that's real, that exists. Whatever it is, we're not going to label it yet and call it table. We're not going to say it's a thing that you can put stuff on. We're just going to be like at first we're just like that's just is. We accept reality objectively.
Yep.
And everything else, family, society, beliefs, morals, right and wrong, anything else, the word microphone, the word computer, just looking at things in front of me, these are just labels that exist in language. They're not real. The things that are real are the things in themselves.
Yeah.
Everything else is constructed up here. So when you said that there's Lego blocks that break everything, that we all have like Lego blocks to play with, it's not language and it's not ideas. The Lego blocks is matter, atoms, molecules, and the forces of the universe. Everything else, and people in China have access to them. We have access to them. Da Vinci had access to the same building blocks. Everyone has access to the same Lego blocks. But all that matters is how you think about them and how you... Like, if you look at, say, the government or anything else that you're against, and you're like corporations or whatever it is, the thing that you don't like, if you were to just look at it as a collection of matter without all the forces and motives that you project onto it, it's just a collection of matter in the shape of a building with people in it doing whatever they're doing. Everything else is up to you in your interpretation of it.
Can you pass me the black box with the orange lid there? Just pass it to me. Like, here's my best analogy to, like, what I mean is by Lego blocks that you got to play with, right? Right, on this chip, there's about, I don't know, 100... The chip right here, the black one thing, there's like 100,000 transistors there, right?
Yeah.
And it's made out of the same matter and the same stuff that was around when Da Vinci was around.
Yeah.
But for me to actually purely understand electron by electron, transistor by transistor, circuit by circuit, what happens in there, it would take me decades. But all I know is that someone else made up some language. That if I say, if digital read pin 7 equals high, then digital write pin 10, whatever.
Yeah.
I can learn some abstract words that somebody made up that are going to make this do very powerful things. If I understand it from first principles, I'm pretty stuck, powerless. The decades of understanding can go what is actually going on. You see what I mean? Like, there are all these... If you know how bricks work and how, like, you know, the columns, the way they're put, like here, you brought up houses, and the reason I'm bringing it's like a metaphor. You could be like those Roman arches with wedges. Like, okay, you may not even know the laws of physics which redistribute the stress from one member to another. But you know, if you put them in that arrangement, the thing's going to stand. Really.
Yeah, that's it. You don't need the abstract words for it to know how you're going to do it.
But
you just get a sense of it.
My point is, though, is that what happens is that we're kind of building our hands-on reality, you know, grasping reality with what we can touch, see, and feel, and it's all just solid stuff, and we recombine it in our own mind. The real situation of it is that other people understood certain things from their core and provided us with a set of shortcuts and guidelines and like rules of thumb, which make it 100.
Language came from.
You know,
I think that's where it started.
It makes it 100 times easier to do amazing stuff, and it does sometimes lead to like wrong ideas and imperfect understandings and fundamental flaws in thinking. But it is those shortcuts at the same time, like language, like words, like these labels, you know, like if I transmitted what happens when I toss this on the ground in terms of like, there are all these electromagnetic forces interacting with each other and the law of gravity and click, 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 I would need... Even the image, if it was accurate, would be so complex. Like,
wait, I forgot where we began.
It began with the idea that you said it's not really Lego blocks, the Da Vinci are the same stuff, and the Chinese are the same stuff. Yeah. And what I'm saying, and you said, like, we invented language isn't real, and you're right, it isn't fucking real, but it is a powerful fucking tool that we ain't... And not just language. We invent shortcuts and rule of thumb that we put out into the world that other people use.
That's the excuse that has people use language, and it works for that purpose, but that's not what people use language for. Engineers and a few people who have very hands-on connection with reality use language in that way. The way everyone else, and everyone actually uses language to deal with the world out there directly, to just as a shortcut, like you said. Everyone does that sometimes, but few people do that most of the time. Most of what people talk about is stuff that has nothing to do with what's actually happening out there. What they're talking about is this subjective realm of stories that people believe in about reality, and about people talk about relationships. They talk about all this whole other realm that has nothing to do with what's actually going on. And so most people are like not talking about. So every time you've ever seen a political discussion, you've seen not a single word, I'll actually go all the way, not a single word said about anything that's actually happening to a single atom, a molecule, or force in the world, or something that you can actually hold and touch that's tangible. It's all a bunch of pretentious fluff that's in a vacuum of abstract ideas that have nothing to do with reality.
Could you
imagine if politics was described in engineering and mathematics? Could you imagine?
It would just show up as error. It wouldn't balance. The equation wouldn't balance.
Let's talk about like capitalism. There was one thing, I watched the Zeitgeist movies and to a large extent, that cracked my mind open through the idea that the monetary system is not what you would ever think. It's like a pyramid scheme, but then you start opening your mind up to different ideas. But one that really got me was like, wait a second, like our lives, as you said, depend on real stuff. We depend on water, arable land.
Not even depend. Just when we live, we deal with life. And it's not like water, serious things. It can just be like amazing things, but it's just a matter of if you're actually enjoying life, you're in life. You're not.
What I
you're
mean
not in
is
this
like,
other world.
Remember when we said these shortcuts? Like when like Boxfell is much easier for me to say than paint you the picture of what the hell happened. In objective reality there,
but as long as we're on the same wavelength, then that works.
Boxfell, it works, right? And
if I don't know what you're talking about, though, then it's not going to work.
The one shortcut in my mind that I realized, when we went too far in the Boxfell analogy, I would say, is money. Not that there's anything fundamentally wrong about money. Like, it addresses scarcity, which is real, but when you have a world where our survival, us surviving, thriving, and succeeding depends on meeting our basic human needs. So what are we talking about here? Shelter, water.
That's such a low level.
Electricity. Hear me out.
Such a basic level.
Hear me out. Like, we got those, then we're fed. And I was thinking, okay, that makes sense, but there's all these economic crises, right? We assign dollar values to things, and we play some game, and when those dollars run out somehow, it's some abstract game that somebody's playing, right? Oh, we're all gonna fucking die, there's no money, we're gonna starve to death, and I'm like, wait, but like, when we were rich 2 years ago, we had less shelter. We had like less water. We got the same stuff. We're just as rich. We got no problems. We got everything. Like I had that realization, and fuck, I'm not saying money's bad, man. Money's totally it
just is.
Money is helpful. It just is, and I'm sure it pushed civilization forward at different stages of the world. We made so much progress that without money would have never been made, but we got to the point where we did so many abstractions. I mean, this is the reality, that you pulled so many fucking shortcuts in so many ways that the rules of thumb we use over here in the world of the stock markets and are so far removed from the objective reality which exists that we could be doomed to death and failure while at the same time we're rich as anything. You see what I mean? Like the layers of abstractions just somehow went way too far.
Yeah.
Perhaps, some people's nefarious self-interest got in the way somewhere or not, but I would say that we need to, like, having a system of political philosophy of how we relate to each other, one thing that we can all agree on is that let's try to use abstractions that imitate objective reality as closely.
What if we could skip the abstractions?
Well, I honestly think it's impossible to skip the abstractions, but I would say it's very possible to say.
What if there's a way?
Those ones are like so removed. You could prove that they're so removed.
Yeah.
Let's ditch that. And if we just keep like ditching things that have got nothing to do with real health and well-being, like if we have this ad of Tiffany selling bling, like, wait a second. I mean, we can all sit here. Maybe some people think it's cool, but we can all kind of, doesn't matter, even if people buy, people do whatever they do, but if generally, most people sit down and agree, like, yeah, like, this has got nothing to do with, you surviving, thriving, or flourishing as a human being. It's like a bunch of rare...
But life isn't about surviving.
Rocks.
For reptiles, life is about surviving.
No, but...
For mammals, life is about something else.
See, here's the thing. I completely 100% agree, but I suppose, and this is where we're going to differ, I suppose, like, the surviving box is something that we kind of need to tick. That like, something that needs to be taken off the table as an issue. I think we need to provide the ability to survive for every human being on the planet. I don't think you owe anyone anything other than a right that if someone's born in your vicinity, in your community, in your whatever demarcation you want to use, district, city, country, whatever, on it. Like, I think a human being has a right to live, fundamentally, that's what I'm saying. And I think that is a starting point. I would say your mission in life, your purpose in life, your higher self and all of that, it shouldn't have shit to do with survival, man. Survival is like the lowest on the rung of these things, but survival needs to be assured because we are at our worst when we are in the mindset where survival isn't assured.
I've never met a person who is genuinely confident who even thought about survival. Like, what they do to handle their survival needs is basically like, oh yeah, gotta take care of that. But their attitude about it isn't, if I don't have water, everything in my life is fucked. Like, they're not like that. They're not like that dramatic about it. They're just like, oh yeah, they just handle it with no thought at all as the most trivial things. They don't handle it as a survival. It's a survival need, but they're not in that world.
1 second, Sergio, I really need to, like, whoa. Like, I'm not... I know it's kind of hard to relate to somebody living in Australia. Like, we have first of all, this country is so fucking rich that even if we didn't have something like Medicare and Centrelink,
even some tribe, you can go all the way back there.
It'd be easy enough to, like, get employment of some sort. Like, if you're 20-something, 30-something, man, the survival is not even on your plate. But wait a second, if you lived in
a tribe, go all the way back, before civilization, before these constructs of jobs and all that stuff, all the way back to a tribe.
Like, no, let's go to we're living in the world where we're living.
But there are tribes still in existence.
There's still tribes in existence, but
go all the way back. Trust me.
Here, what I'm saying is, if you are born and your survival is not assured, that is the recipe for how tribes form, and it's like us and them, and we gotta kill them to take their shit, because if we don't get them camels,
that's not what all the tribes are about, though.
But much of human history, what I'm saying is this notion of, it's about, if your survival is not assured, and, as I said, my life, your life, Chris's life, hard to relate to that. To some extent, in my childhood, I had a taste of what it means for your survival not to be sure. There was a war in Bosnia going on. But
holy shit, you were
I'm
there?
not gonna go on a tangent and talk about it.
Oh
but yeah,
my
we'll
god!
talk about it later.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No.
That's
It's,
full on.
But what I'm saying is, a lot when that shit is under threat, human behavior doesn't default to higher states. Things get like rings close. You know, like you really. You and your neighbors take care of each other. Like people that are your cousins and your friends, and they come down and you share everything that you have. But at the same time, I mean, my own sister, we didn't have. My mom was sick. We didn't have what were we gonna have for dinner? My sister would run out like at 10 o'clock at night, and because there was no electricity, it was easy to hide. She'd go with a backpack and then like steal veggies from people's gardens, and it's like. The fuck, you need to survive. The neighbors had 2 little kids who were also hungry. Like, we'd share it with them. You see what I mean? Like, you have the
immediate community.
Yeah, you have this thing where the best and the worst of human nature, like, you and your people look after each other as best you can, but there is this us. The world splits into tribes that are warring, just like in a macrocosm there's a tribe warring against the tribe, and if you're like my imagination, like if you're a favela in Brazil, and you're freaking boxed into this little patch of land, you are going to feel that if you and your mates get together and go rob a bank, that you're doing the right thing for your community, and then you're trying to feed your kids. Like,
got it. Yeah, I understand.
When you have, but if instead of that favela,
I never understood this before. Okay.
If instead of this favela, if none of those people had the question of, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow without a roof over my head, or I don't know what my kids are gonna eat for dinner. If those questions were never questions, if that was never an issue, if that was given from the start, and it's only a question of, wait a second, am I gonna sit here, take drugs, jerk off, play PlayStation until I die, or am I gonna do something real? If those are the choices you're facing, you are more likely to get up off your ass and do beautiful, productive things for humanity than if the choices you're facing are, am I going to starve tonight, or am I going to do whatever it takes to put food on the table of my kids? And I would say that, once you take away this notion that, you're worrying about where your meal is coming from, when that's never a problem for anybody, I would say we'll take away half the crime in the world. And it would leave, more importantly, every time someone's fucking useless, you could look them in the eye and say, look, man, like, you don't have an excuse. I mean, when poor people do bad things, I don't know. Sometimes it could be legitimate reasons of poverty, scarcity, and being boxed in and having no choice, having kids to feed. But if their kids were fed as a default state, then it takes away a lot of those negative incentives, and they can't even lie to themselves anymore. Like.
Can I put a question to
you?
Yeah. So how long were you guys stuck in that situation?
9 months.
Okay, so that's.
Some days.
Okay, so that it wasn't like 10 years or some shit like that. All right.
9 months.
Just say you see someone who's like a poor person, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine that the soul of Steve Jobs today inhabited their body. They wake up and they have Steve Jobs' way of looking at the world. Same exact circumstances. They have working hands and legs. Maybe they don't even have working hands and legs, but they can speak. Like he can speak. And how long are they going to remain poor?
I'll answer your question straight away. No. I'll answer your question.
No, his living soul, not his dead soul.
Like, here's the truth. If the 20-year-old Steve Jobs, raised by the family he got raised by, with the upbringing, got teleported
just
into
right
the body.
now, his soul, like as a 54-year-old Steve Jobs, with all of experience and all the rest of that.
He wouldn't be poor. He'd be rich within 5 years probably. But
What's special about his way of viewing life?
Well, he's a sum aggregate of his experiences.
But specifically, it's not just the sum total, but what's the view of life that he has?
But where did he get it though? Like, you see what I mean? Like, to be, you see what to have. My answer to you is your scenario would never happen in reality. Sadly, because I'll tell you why. To become Steve Jobs, he can to construct the personality, the essence of what Steve Jobs is, who he was. You needed
his background,
the environment in which he grew up.
That's right.
What if it wasn't constructed?
I believe.
What if it's something that you have?
I believe it's totally both, and I don't.
That we all have.
No. I don't think that you are born into a body with a set of values and personality. I believe that there's a seed of it that's original, that's just yours, and that just interacts with the environment to become the final product. And I don't believe that an environment such as a favela could produce a Steve Jobs. I don't think that the raw material for a Steve Jobs exists there.
That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is the cancer in the world isn't... The cancer in the world is this thing that takes people out of life and into this mode of survival. And in that mode of survival, it grows and justifies itself and becomes more and more abstracted from reality. The world of survival is different to the world of life. The world of thinking about life and analyzing it is also in that realm of survival. It might begin as some interesting curiosity, like, oh, I wonder how the world works. But if you go too far down the rabbit hole, you forget that it was originally a fun adventure, and it becomes this serious fucking project to understand the evil of the world, and which is, I think, what most writers and artists are. They went too far, and I think that's why they're writers and not doers. People like Guy Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, or James Cameron made Avatar, like amazing movies that he makes. I wonder what his life would be like, his real life, like his personal life, if he made Pandora for real as a property development. What would it be like if he, not a whole fucking planet, but if he actually, made the worlds that he takes people to in reality, so there was a place in concrete form in existence. If he did that before he made his movies, what would that be like? How would he feel? How would that influence his art?
I know precisely where you're coming from, and I always said that, like, there's something, the thing that's most wrong about teaching as a profession is you get these people that regurgitate information throughout high school, and then regurgitate information and throughout uni, and then you put them in front of kids, and what are they going to teach kids? They're going to teach kids how to regurgitate information. Like, if you're going to teach, you're going to teach English, you're going to teach the kids how to write. Like, what the fuck have you written? Is there a set of novels or poems or newspaper articles? Like, you know what I mean? If you're gonna teach law, like, where are the cases that you?
Those who can do, those who can't teach that thing.
I think those who can do should teach, and if you can't do it, what the fuck are you teaching? Like, if you can't do something, how the it's like, how can I learn plumbing from somebody who can't do plumbing? It would. Imagine Chris gave me some fucking theories about, like, the pumps.
Gravity.
And, supposedly these things...
The physics behind plumbing.
It doesn't work. If I want to do plumbing, the apprenticeship system is the best thing for learning. And I went on this tangent about learning and teaching, but it's totally parallel to what you said about James Cameron. It's...
Which, by the way, he's making incredible movies, so perhaps his personal life is amazing without even having to make any of his actual ideas real. But he did go down, he did do, like, deep sea exploration and so on, so I guess that was real. Like, he made a movie about that, and he did that in reality, explored these trenches. So maybe he does that stuff. Go on, sir.
The parallel, though, behind what you teach, I suppose... When you're putting out a message, a movie, a book, It's like teaching something. You're projecting information into the world, and if you're projecting information into the world from a basis of experience, it's much. It has more. It's going to be more powerful information. So I totally, in a sense, I was just giving another metaphor for what you're saying. In my experience, that works.
Well, with my son and my daughter, I tell them, I'm straight up with my kids. I say, look, I don't have all the answers. My father always used to have an answer for everything, right? I tell my kids, here's what I know, right? I don't know whether it's truth. I don't know whether half of it's crap, because I'm only going on my experiences. Obviously, my experiences in life, and then if they ask me questions about something that I may know, I give them information. I said, but you've got the World Wide Web. You should look it up and look it up for yourself. Don't mimic. My son has a great idea of talking about things that I talk about, but has no information that he hasn't checked any of it. And I always say to him,
secondhand.
Yeah. I'm only telling you what I know and what I've put together with these facts that may not be real. These may be all stories. I don't know whether they're real facts. I haven't gone into them long enough. There's a few things I can point out, but I always say to Gabriel, it's up to you to take that information, and if it interests you, then formulate, put it together, chase it up, and put it together yourself, and have your own opinion. Don't mimic my opinion. And the other thing I teach my kids that I think is really important, and might not be important to you guys, but needs and wants, right? And it's very hard for kids to understand the difference between needs and wants. There's things in life that you need, and there's things that you want, right? And I always...
Which is more important?
Well, needs.
I'd say wants.
No, I'd be the opposite. There's things that you need in life. Like, do you need... you talk about food, water, shelter.
But you want love. You don't need love. I mean, like, as an adult, like, you don't need love to survive, but you want love. I can
buy love. $100. Half an hour. Anyway, let's not go there.
Go on.
But what I'm saying is, with my kids need love. I think that's a great thing for kids. They need that.
Yeah.
So
you include that in need. Okay, that's cool. I get that.
But there's needs and wants. I mean, there's a lot of needs and wants, and like, do you really need? Do you need these things to survive? I always come back to the survival thing. Do you really need these things, right? And then there's things that you want. What's more important? And you've got to tell them that you've got to get back down to the base values. You've got to go back to your base values when you talk to your kids. You've got to give them that thingo, that
It's like,
sorry, it's a bit
we are. This is what we're gonna do. I'll take charge of the conversation now, and we're gonna talk about what the original topics were. But fuck, it was a good conversation so far. It centered mostly around bringing up kids,
which is good.
And I think that I'm gonna put that in the title, whatever the hell. But I just want to ask Sergio, if what I was gonna ask you in the first minute, but if you were gonna try to define capitalism, perhaps reference some of the shit that you said so far.
Everything that we've said so far ties into what I would say. Every little last thing.
All right. So how would you define it?
Do you mind if I spend a bit of time to build it up from start to finish?
Sergio, we're not going to interrupt him.
I think I'll be able to do it. I don't know.
That's great, but I've got to go because
I know even what I'm going to call it. From bringing up kids to the economic system of the future.
All right. So
integrating the whole thing.
To put all this into a bigger picture and figure out where I'm coming from with this whole capitalism, libertarianism thing is, I go right back to the beginning of what it is to be a human being when you're first born, or when you're a really little kid. Anything's possible. You just feel in this world of love and connectedness. You feel really powerfully everything, and you're so sensitive and attuned to what's happening. You're sucking up so much information, the most subtle details and things. And you're not just... Adults are disconnected from life, fundamentally, most of them. Very few aren't, are more in tune with life. Little kids, they don't have some separation between themselves and life. They're in the world, living. And for kids, living isn't sitting around thinking about something, or brooding, or having a thought. For kids, living takes a different form. What does it look like when kids are just living and doing their thing? What are they doing? What do kids do?
They have this wide-eyed excitement and then passionate curiosity, and they're either asking a million questions, or they are literally testing everything. Like, what does this do? What if I throw that? What if I, like...
is there expression like
that? Is there...
Yeah, that's it.
You know...
Exploring.
It's like a constant interaction with the world without too many... You just see, like, there's not too many preconceptions. Everything is an open-ended activity, you know. There is no... when you and I interact...
You got it. It's all open-ended activity. I never heard it put that way.
You know, we have certain set rules, you know. I had this notion, I'm going to ask you a certain set of questions, we're going to talk about this, and there are conventions that try to let you finish, and da-da-da. For a kid, it's different to the extent that they're testing everything you say, that they'd probably run out of the room and then bring in a doll and say, but what if this person was like that, what would you like? There is, as I said, it's more
what are they
open-ended.
doing?
Yeah.
What's the word for what they're doing?
Perhaps freedom is the one you're looking for, but it certainly comes in.
Freedom implies, like, you're being liberated from something, but that's just a foundation. Like, kids aren't just like, oh, I'm free. No, they're free is just automatic.
Being, I suppose.
Yeah, and when they're just being, what do they tend to be doing? Do they tend to be, when they're not just asking questions about something, but when they're actually just, you know, what's the style of how they're doing everything? Well, if you look at a bunch of puppies doing whatever they're doing, what are they doing? What do puppies do?
Play?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all. That's all they do. That's all they do, except for a couple of things when they... Except something happens sometimes for a kid where it stops being a game, when someone takes it too far, or they have something in themselves that they forget it's a game. They get taken out of the game. When you get taken out, you cry. That's what happens when a kid gets taken out of the game. They cry, and it's a rare exception for them to be crying normally. So
perhaps it's like they're having so much fun, and that they're acclimatized and used to having so much fun all the time that the notion of not having so much fun is.
Yeah, they make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, like, it's absolutely terrible that I'm not having fun because I seem to do that all the time, and why am I not having fun right now? Like, it's a frustrating thing. Yeah.
That's it. Like, yeah, that's it. There's a certain kind of... So this is the beginning of things for... That's what a human being is. Everything else is some horrible perversion and corruption of what it is that's possible to be a human being. And the people who hold on to that essence of life, who live like that, are the people who are at the top of... They're at the top of their game in the world. They're the people who love what they do and make amazing things and aren't just like evil masterminds fucking things over. They're the part of the top 1% who are like, you are an inspiration. You got something there in how you live. I mean,
like, I would... No. There's no disagreement that you have for me there.
So that thing that they keep doing, it's a thing that poor people don't do. I mean, in first world countries at least, where they have some options. So I'm going to get into this now, build from here. So right at the beginning, you have a kid and everything's great. Now, there's a couple of things, that's the mammalian brain would be my guess. That mode of, there's nothing to survive here. We're in the mode of playing and learning and exploring the world. They don't, when they're building something, like if they're putting something together with blocks, it's all hands-on experience. It's probably all pictures in their mind rather than words. Kids probably aren't forming the word for gravity when they're putting blocks together. They just have a certain feel for there's gravity. They don't need to have a science degree to understand what gravity is. They just get it. They just get it here, and that's all they need. They don't need someone to put it into words for them, because they can just do it. They can just literally with their hands do it. Now, maybe long ago, people who were living in this state thought, okay, I'm going to leave a couple of words here as shorthand for what I've just done, so that someone else can figure it out. And that was perhaps the first legitimate use of language before I suspect something else happened to it. But so we live in this pre-language state. It's all hands-on. There's...
You kind of like... don't... I don't want to go too far of the tangent of children playing, feeling, interacting with the world, but even if some shortcuts are beautiful, pure, and once you grasp them, you have a model of gravity that's a feeling. You just know that, ooh, like I'm sinking into this chair. This is gravity.
You can reverse. Yeah, it takes you. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And if I had to get to outer space, I wouldn't be imagining myself elevating from the chair. I'd like sketch out G M1 M2 over R squared and work out whatever I need.
As a shorthand.
As a quantifiable thing.
Not even as a shorthand, because in the moment when you're thinking of it, if you're really doing it properly, you're probably doing it by grasping the actual fundamental concept and just storing the information in an equation on a piece of paper, because you can't think of everything at once. So you put the equation there, or whatever.
Look, what I'm saying is that I guess my only point, and I'll leave it at this, is that abstraction of that sort, where it's nice, quantifiable, is never necessary. It's a harmless, very useful thing.
Yeah. That's how it probably began.
And that's it. The abstractions that happen in the other direction, where we use the word love, and then things get taken in and out for what love means, there's a lot of harm there.
Oh, yeah.
There is no harm in the, GM1 M2 over R squared.
The language of reality.
Yeah.
Objective reality.
That defines objective reality so bloody tightly. Perhaps not exactly, but it's a... There you go. That's a little bunch of letters that will allow you to do real things in the real objective world to a level of accuracy and reliability. Smuggling ideas under the word love and meaning one thing, saying another...
or bad, good, all this sort of stuff. Like these things that you can't hold.
That is an abstraction where problems may come. But
it's a way of connecting an emotion in your brain to a word, or to an action that had nothing to do with it. It's artificial. And see, here's what I think happens to people as babies. There's this thing that I looked up recently in all cultures every culture in the world has it. It's called it's a symbol called the evil eye. And basically, it's this fear, this superstition around the world that if babies and young children should be shielded from what they call the evil eye, which is it's an expression when someone looks at you in a way where their eyelids aren't touching their iris, so that showing the whites of their eyes. Now, the only emotions that exists with are anger, or fear, like there's something very wrong, or serious, or a predator looking at you will look like that. Like they'll give you an intense stare of like, I can't do it, but like there's a look that like you can see it on serial killers. They do it all the time whenever you look at them up on YouTube.
I wonder whether the eye and the $1 bill, the eye in the pyramid.
Oh, we're going there. We're going there.
I wonder if the irises touch the eyelids in that one, because I never.
It does in that one usually.
Yeah,
it does, which I think is an artistic mistake.
Okay.
Because I think that the reason that this has such a resonance for us is it's not some mystical, magical thing like these cultures think. You look at a dog like that, and they will freak out. You look at any animal like that, and they'll freak out because it's a universal, instinctual signal of threat of some kind. Either there's something that I'm afraid of, or I'm the threat that you need to be afraid of. One or the other is the thing. And if you do that to a baby or to a toddler, what's going to happen? Or any person, really, but particularly people vulnerable at that age. What's going to likely happen is the survival part of their brain will wake up and think, you're in a dangerous environment. Time for survival protocols to kick in. And so, basically, you've awakened the reptilian brain inside a mammalian brain to that. And basically... imagine that your soul, yourself, who you are, your whole personality as a baby, is this higher self of just possibility, like a puppy. It's like that kind of freedom and happiness. Imagine how horrifying it is to have that first contact between your mammalian brain and your reptilian brain. What the fuck is that like? And if the trigger is going to be some eye symbol, like someone who's looking down disapprovingly or someone who's really worried or whatever, if that is your first exposure to that, then it's going to be burned into your consciousness as the origin of that contact, that first traumatic contact of fear. Now, I believe that that's why artists all around the world have this symbolism of the eye stuck in all their work. And that's why the word ego, so the word I, myself, tends to be collapsed also with I, because what people call themselves becomes this. So I'll just backtrack a bit. So this survival mechanism in the brain, it starts taking over. It starts getting a life of its own. The more negative beliefs you have about yourself or about life that dramatize things, the more it takes over. And if you wanted to undo that, you would just look at your false beliefs and correct them. But most people don't. But anyway, so you got this creeping consciousness that's a foreign invasion in your brain. It's not you. It's not your higher self. It's not your emotional self. It's not your soul. It has its own emotions, but very few primitive ones of fear, lust, anger, vengeance, these kinds of things it will have, but it won't have love, inspiration, compassion, self-esteem. It won't have self-esteem. It can't experience that state.
Or perseverance, or
no,
or like
drive,
or
it'll have like a different kind of drive of just.
It's like a
urgency.
recoil. Yeah, everything.
It can thrive.
Me now, this, that, I do know pretty clearly, what you're talking about, and
it's in everyone. Everyone has one to some degree or another.
Necessarily, the way I see the whole highly ultra competitive sort of reptilian brain.
Only in overdrive. It's only when it's in overdrive. It's a normal part of us. It has a purpose.
And even exercising, even entering that mode of consciousness, I don't consider it a bad thing. To give you an example, and this depends on different people, and I've had many arguments, especially with people from Zeitgeist who believe that competition is bad, cooperation is good, like it's a fucking maxim for life. I don't believe it's a maxim for life at all. I loved competing in tennis. And I had this, even temporary, sometimes hate for the opponent. But it's a walled-off thing. It's like when we were, I would say evolutionarily, we were hunters and gatherers. We would go in a mode where we would chase and take down a much bigger, much more powerful animal through humongous effort, cooperation, and this highly aggressive instinctual drive, which only works within us very, very rarely throughout the day. Like when we are in those fight or flight situation, the adrenal glands go overdrive. You get a pile of adrenaline running through your system. You get a whole other.
Yeah.
Your blood goes away from your brain, away from your internal organs, and just starts pumping out into your extremities. But this idea,
your amygdala goes like that part of your brain goes crazy.
A feeling. The feeling itself, I wouldn't say it's even a bad negative feeling. You just feel like you are alive and in that present moment. But it's like, if you do that, if you occasionally compete in an endeavor, like me, you in a chess match or whatever. I mean, in my case,
I think you hit on it. Yeah.
You get something real out of it, and if I'm pushing your limits, you're pushing mine, and it's like there is something valuable to be gleaned from it. The problem is when this mentality, it's designed as a part of who you are to kick in that hunt, And that hunt never took 7 days or months or years. It was like half an hour a day when you went there and you hunted that animal. And what you have in this world is people living in that consciousness all day,
the time,
all the year
all
round.
the time.
And this is where the sickness is. If I find I am competing 8 hours a day at work with this guy for some position, it isn't healthy.
But that's not where it begins.
You know,
It's not like just. Sorry to interrupt. Just one thing. Like it begins when you short circuit your reptilian brain. Rephrase. So you have your reptilian brain, core survival functions. Above it, you have the mammalian brain, which is all the emotional side of things, and then you have the
aquatics.
the human aspect of it, which is the thinking, analyzing part, which is basically like huge, massive computing power that is available to either the reptilian brain or the mammalian brain to be in the driver's seat. You choose.
You don't.
Or it takes a life of its own.
It takes a life of its own is the ideal scenario, at least in my sort of.
That's the thinker who's thinking about thinking and thinking about the world that could be, but he's just thinking because he's thinking, and that's the world of the thinking brain, isolated from the rest of the brain in its own little bubble, not dealing with reality, not dealing with the emotions, not even dealing with probably survival threats unless it explores too far. But here's what I put to you. So you have little kids, right? They're not dealing with any of this bullshit. They're just playing. They're playing games one after another, and they move from one game to another seamlessly, or sometimes not. But either way, the only things that tend to take them out are survival threats. Like, first one would be being hit. You hit a kid, and you're going to send a pain signal that's going to go straight through their brainstem, which is the reptilian brain, the top of your spinal cord. What's that going to do? Any animal is going to flinch and have a reaction straight away, and that reaction is generated by your most primitive, basic responses. So basically what's happening is, every time you hit a kid, you're awakening its survival brain and telling it, hey, there's a dangerous world out here that you're going to have to survive. Other things that do it are body language that indicate threats, like that evil eye, or just any pointing, all these kinds of things. Someone being weird. The third thing is language. So telling a kid things which take them out of reality and get them thinking in a little bubble in their head. Abstract things, getting them caught up in this little loop of building a simulation of the world in their head, instead of actually just dealing with the world directly. And worse, I think one of the worst is programming their thinking brain to connect good stuff in themselves, like pleasure, sex, assertiveness, thinking independently, even thinking itself, like whatever, like completely healthy things, connecting them with fear, shame, anxiety, negativity, hate, guilt, connecting them with that button, and then triggering the reptilian brain. That's like short-circuiting the brain with some very messy circuits.
There's a very very simple way I could put that.
Yeah,
it's
sorry about that.
It's like you are cutting. You taking from stimulus to response without going through any thinking between stimulus and response. And I would say that a good functioning human brain has stimuli to come in through the five senses, even the whole me looking at you weird or poking through you, that I get that stimuli. Now most kids in that case, you have some evolutionarily wired instincts, and then you build on top of that as well. And what happens is you get an automatic response, which is that reptilian brain. Okay, threat here. I'm gonna arm up and worry about what happens next.
You can capture it so well.
But if you become used to thinking holistically, you go, okay, that's the stimuli. What is the context of the situation? Oh, well, he's trying to give me an example of what stimulus response is. So he's actually not threatening me in any way. Like, you see what I mean? Like, if, just like you're watching the news and they're saying, oh, well, these terrorists and we should attack and invade this country. If you're looking at pictures of people diving off a skyscraper to their death because they're being fried, you are frustrated, angry. You hate to see that happen to anybody. And when they say now we need to get the bastards who did this, you're going like, fuck yeah, we do. Like let's get them all. They got to pay for this.
And I think we have that for a reason. Like, justice gets rid of the thing that's a threat.
But if we put some thinking between that stimulus and response, you'd be like, who is telling me this message? Is this really true? Are the facts that they are putting out aligned with actual reality? Do they check out? Are there contradictions? Who's set to benefit from this action? Then you realize, oh, well, there is this group of people that have profited from every single war, and they're the same guys that are sitting here telling me that we need to invade Iraq. Like, what the fuck? Like, these guys, when they did it in Vietnam, nothing could happen. When they did it in Korea, nothing could happen. When they did it in South America, nothing could happen. So, I guess what I'm saying is that just like it happens, like a lot of the negativity, a lot of what happens to kids whose lives go wrong is that they have a lot of automatic reptilian brain responses to stimuli.
What activated that?
I don't know, but what I'm saying is the response to that. I don't believe that it's permanently set. I think that you could learn to recognize I'm having an emotional response to stimuli, which is probably programmed within me. I need to logically analyze both. Why am I having this emotional response and the data that's coming in for fact checking and logic and all of that? And then what I'm trying to say is admit to the fact, observe the fact that you are having non-thinking emotional reactions, non-thinking reactions, non-thinking fear, aggression reactions, the stimuli to come in from your environment.
Yeah, you're being a machine.
Analyze those reactions and analyze the stimuli. Put some thinking in between the stimulus and response, and what you're going to react with a lot more productively for your own self-interest and with a lot more compassion towards people involved if you do that. Now, I mean, I again, slight tangent, but you were... I felt it's very relevant to basically, what you're saying is the same way, it's like what happens of subconscious programming of human beings. It's kind of like behaviourism, if I get you to put that glass away and give you a cookie and I do that 100 times, even though you know what I'm doing, after 100th time, you are going to just start putting those glasses away when you eat the cookies. You will just do this. If you were a 2-year-old, and I served you pineapple juice and slapped you, and then served you pineapple juice, slapped you again, if that happened twice, you'd fucking hate pineapple juice. You wouldn't remember why. But the point is, these are 2 examples of shortcuts in your brain where the thinking and the general processes that take place normally, if you've got no associations with apple juice, well, you're just going to taste the apples and you'll either really like it or whatever, and you'll have this
It's more than associations, though. But much deeper than associations.
Okay.
It's truth. People don't just associate things. They lock it in with truth. So, people, when you believe something is true, believe it, it's believing that locks. So believing as an emotion that something is true means it's like your brain hardwiring something in and like locking it in. Like, this is going to be a fundamental building block because it's true, and I'm going to stubbornly hold on to this no matter what, unless I unless I really see that it's not true. And here's the key: if you just look at something that you're doing that's bullshit, and you're like, oh, I can see that I believe that this is the case, but really it's not the case. That's not going to cut it. You're not going to change your behavior doing that. What you need to do is actually get it. You need to believe that it's not true anymore. That bullshit thing that you thought was true about yourself that stops you in life, whatever it is. So, for instance, for me, if I have a belief that I can't be someone who can just take a jump, fly by the seat of my pants, and just see where it takes me without knowing how it's going to work out. I've got to plan it and get it all worked out properly. And as a result, I've become very good at planning things. But I don't do anything. And I knew that. I've known this most of my life. But it's only recently that I've actually been able to believe that belief about myself isn't true. That belief that I can't be someone who just flies by the seat of my pants. Because if I look back in my life, there are times when I was that person. And it's whenever I believe that I'm not that kind of person is when it will stop me. And I'll believe it like a matter of the truth. Like, it won't just be some... And this is everything negative that you pick up from other people works like this, but also any conclusions that you form yourself by thinking things through too much and not dealing with reality enough. Will go this way.
I look at things very similarly. I mean, there are slight differences. I don't like... believe is just a word. I don't like to think that I believe anything. I think... As in
what I mean is the emotional experience of...
something being real for you.
You know when you're like I can tell you something and you're like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. Versus I can tell you something and you'd be like, that's true, isn't it? Yes! Oh my god. It's a very different thing. The difference is the emotion. There's an emotional factor to getting it completely. It hits you. It hits you because it's doing something to you. It's actually doing something that might affect your behavior. If it didn't hit you in that way, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, I guess I should go for do some exercise and eat less food because then it will make me that will make me lose weight. Yeah, I guess now that I know that, my problems are solved. No, they're not, because you don't get it here. You gotta get it here. Like, oh my god, I've been doing this. I've been believing this my whole life. It's that kind of rock your world insight that tends to make the difference.
Things like, I've had many sort of moments like that in my life. I don't necessarily even ascribe to it has to be that makes a difference. I think that
with greater power,
you can melt away a misconception in one go, or you can melt it away and chop it off in 10 pieces. You know. In other words, I'm holding this idea and I believe it's true, and then there's one thing that adds some doubt. Okay, I'm doubting it.
So
but then there's another, and another, and another, and it eventually, slowly, gets chipped away, and eventually, slowly, something else comes in its place, which is more in tune with reality. So, as I said, like a typical example of the aha moment was, I was watching this Zeitgeist documentary, and then they said like he was just using this word money as an abstraction for real things, and that was like a fucking aha moment for me. Like, so much of what else said got chipped away and fell off, but that one thing stayed, and it's like, okay, whatever model we have for dealing with reality needs to mirror it as closely as possible. And when you have dollars which are made out of thin air based on debt, like, there is nothing's borrowing from nothing in nature. No one's printing the fucking currency. It's all already there. It's just circulating. Like, it whatever we have as a system for managing whatever resources is going to kind of look a lot like what exists. And all I know is it doesn't. And you can mimic it 100 different ways. I can tell you what's not it.
It doesn't have to.
But going into the idea of like the whole aha, you know,
Yeah.
except like aha, I
forgot how we got there. I don't
were-
remember what I was saying, how we
you were-
got there. But yeah.
you were saying like about changing your life and how
Truth. That's it.
truth and how like
Yeah.
you either believe something and that's what's holding you back, and then you sort of get to believe the opposite of it, or you believe that it's not true. Like you are, in a sense, you're bought into concepts of how reality works, and some concepts are highly productive in your life and others are not. That's sort of what you were saying, and I was bringing some examples in regarding what I believe about economic sort of theory, and
I got it again. Yeah, keep going. Sorry. Yeah.
The notion that I have, and the way that I think, is I look at I take in new information. I take in, like when somebody says anarcho-capitalism, I see like a bucket of ideas there. And they're hugging into like, I like this whole bucket here, and then this guy's like socialism, revolution, and he's holding another bucket, and he's just like bought into everything there, and I'm going like, okay, you present it to me, and I'll just shoot down whatever I can, and there'll be something left, and then and after that, I'm gonna see what I can work with what's left. And in other words, I find that the process of believing in something is, to me, more a process of, and this may sound somewhat negative, of disbelieving things. But in other words, you
cut off other possibilities.
Like
Every belief, you cut off other beliefs that could be possible.
If someone tells me, right, I'm meditating and I'm ascending into a different dimension, I'm not gonna go like, yo, like, you're fucking in La La Land. I'm just going, alright, well, what is it that you're doing? I'm gonna run with it. I try not to preclude, write anything off, but okay, I'll like, if I see the ideas have high potential, I'm gonna run with it. I'm gonna even try it. I'm gonna look into it some more. And then, as facts come in that contradict that, I kind of put higher doubt over something, lower doubt over something. And so most of the world, most of the ideas I see have these corresponding values of likelihood. And it's like a range of probabilities. And very few things at the center have high likelihood. As in, this thing here, I don't know if it's 100% right, but this thing here is a very useful model.
It's like
this
science.
Yeah.
Science is right close to the middle there.
Yeah, like this
Not
thing...
100%, but it's as close as you're going to get.
This thing here...
Aside from actually just experiencing it
Yeah.
directly.
This thing here is a good model. It seems to work for me. Like, it seems to correspond with what's really going on. For now, I'm holding on. This is kind of what I believe. And to give you some examples of it, when you sort of start analyzing the world, at one stage, you look at all of these nefarious happenings, you immerse yourself in conspiracy culture, and like, even though you're capable of proving that half of it's wrong, like you're faced with the reality that there's a huge portion of it that's like an empirical fact, and that the like world...
Oh, I think it's true, but I don't think it's true in the way conspiracy theorists mean it.
Look, the problem with most conspiracy theorists is that they have a myopic view, where everything that, if, there was a time I made an article about some wing of the government or some corporation killing kids in the third world, it would become automatic truth. There would be no fact-checking in there because it fits in with their worldview. You know what I mean? Like, there would not...
Confirmation bias.
There is a huge amount
lazy.
of... Yeah. And secondly, they're not seeking out information which is... One, they're not seeking out information that's overwhelmingly positive. That's that is one of the central problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, I'm not saying I was shocked as to how right, even completely what's the best word, hyperbolical, paranoid people like Alex Jones often are about a lot of the things they say. Like,
look at how his emotion, while he's like, he puts some good stuff out there, but he's...
What I was going to say, the main thing there that's going on is not that he's telling you lies, or that he's not telling you the truth, or any of that. It is out of the big picture, there's bad bits here, and if you were just zooming in on them, staying on this one and zooming in on the next one, and they exist within the context of a wider world where a lot of opportunities are happening, good things are happening, like there's overwhelmingly positive trends in the world right now that are going on, and then you choose to just find out,
the New World Order are controlling us, we can't have freedom.
So
yeah,
if you're like a hound that smells corruption, all that's going to exist is corruption, because if you become exceedingly good at knowing what corruption is, where it is, and exceedingly good at exposing it, that becomes your world.
Yeah.
Because you're finding it here, you're finding it there, you're finding it there, and you're going, people are saying I'm paranoid, but this is the truth, and well, wait a second, it just is. But you're projecting nothing but that.
Conspiracy theorists are people who are, I believe, very emotionally sensitive, so they're able to, and same with people who are kind of, certain kinds of semi-insane people and mystical people who are very in touch with their feelings. They don't rein it in with some self-reflection to actually be like, just because I feel it's true doesn't mean it's true.
No, but
look,
I repeat
there's
this.
a kind of truth in what they're saying, but it's not what they mean.
I repeat this. Yeah. There is... even if you... I can rattle off a few sites. You go to We Are Change, Corbett Report, Infowars.com, The actual fact-checking, quantifiable, factual assessment of the content of what you would call today's conspiracy theorists is actually closer to objective reality than what CNN or BBC reports. I swear that
that's pretty tragic, but I believe that.
That
tells you something, though, because they're not really. Oh God, that's really tragic.
It is.
I never thought of that. Oh God.
That really shocked me, and I assembled that type of worldview in my own head, and at some stage I was thinking it's impossible to make an honest living in this world. I mean, I was actually thinking like it's near impossible to make an honest living in this world because everything is so corrupt.
Yep, this is how it does it.
And it was very disempowering, to be honest. I started... I have no idea how I wouldn't say I snapped out of it, because a lot of, as I said, it wasn't factually that what they're saying is wrong, it is what they're focusing on, and it's not about widening the lens. I will say that, even as every large country in this world is probably becoming more totalitarian, the corporations that are out there are becoming more abusive. But okay, that's one side of the equation. The average person has access to 100 times more information. The average person is 4 times more informed. There were, the
average person has access.
Think back of the history of empire in human civilization.
Yeah.
When the most powerful nation-state in the world wants to invade a country, they do it 100% of the time. Just in the last decade, Syria and Iran, you had literally demagogues, arms companies, generals, in the biggest superpower in the world going like, we want to like invade this country and bomb the shit out of it, and it didn't happen twice. And I can't help but think, holy shit, the world is actually changing for the better. Like the average reaction,
running out of money.
They
can't afford to go into these countries.
Well, but it's still the response. People were on the streets. They were actually saying like, these are the lies, and
oh, there was an actual response. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
So like again, things happen that when you have this. I don't even say conspiratorial mind view, but when you have a worldview, a consciousness that's aware of all the nefarious things going on in the world. More importantly, if you have a consciousness that's focused on the nefarious things that's going on in the world, it gives you a powerless mindset. But then you start seeing things after long enough, when you learn enough history, that, holy shit, like, I know so many bad things are going on, but the history was worse, and then things are actually getting better in many ways. Yeah. And we live in a world where I will have, like, not just, what do you mean, no way to make an honest living? I've got hundreds of opportunities. I can think of this, and, like, you start somehow. My advice to people that do watch Alex Jones and do take a keen interest and awareness of the machinations of Fortune 500 companies in the third world and U.S. militarism and things like that.
They're missing the point. They're really missing the point.
Okay, take that and put it in a box, and maybe spend a month of your life looking for awesome things that are happening in the world, and then reintegrate that box into your new worldview, where you
not just reintegrate it into, have that be your worldview.
Yeah, exactly. Have that. You've got to have it. Put it this way.
Just one thing.
I'm really
cool. Oh, you go. So you wrap it up.
Put it this way.
Okay.
If you're living in a jungle, you are I don't know, like a little squirrel. Mm-hmm. You have predators, okay? You need to know about your predators. You need to know about what the wolves are doing, what the foxes are doing, what the owls are doing. Mm-hmm. But if you spend your day thinking about what the wolves, owls, and foxes are doing, you're going to live the most miserable fucking life ever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, to you people that think, oh, these conspiracy theorists, they're miserable, they don't know what they're talking about, and they're full of shit. Like, no. You are the squirrel in the forest who has no clue about what the wolves and the foxes and the owls are doing, and you're probably going to be somebody's lunch one day.
Whereas the conspiracy theorists know, but they can become obsessed about it instead of actually just knowing, you gotta watch out.
But the conspiracy theorist that just thinks about that all day long is already somebody's lunch, because his fucking mind has squashed his infinite human potential.
That's
and
it.
He's existing in a miserable reality where that's all he focuses on.
That is it. That's it exactly. Like, you've put it. I've never heard it put that way before. That's really good.
Thanks, man.
I didn't really have an explanation for the people who were just like avoiding it, but that makes sense. They're in denial about the fact that there's predators in the world who they're probably working for. Is there a whiteboard marker behind it?
Yeah, we got a pile of them.
I want to show you something, because the way I see this, there's so much that's coming together here, and I want to put the big picture.
The black one works good.
Now, I've never done this before, so this is I don't know how good I'm going to be at communicating this, but we'll see what we do. So, in the beginning, there's like you as a person is just this place of wonderful possibility, infinite. I've just represented by a circle. Let's just say that's an infinite universe, right? Nothing's separating you from anything. Everything's just kind of fluffy and wonderful, except for some rare times when you don't have something and you're in need, and you feel like a survival concern. So when you have a survival concern, suddenly you get taken out of this wonderful realm, and you experience like a sort of disruption a little bit from within, or just a disruption of your equilibrium. So it's like, I don't have any milk. Where's my mom? She's gone. Something like that. There's some fear, and she's just right there, and then you get calmed down again. And the name of the game for the mom is to restore equilibrium. So the child is always whole and complete, and that eliminate that whatever cracks appear in this perfect bubble. Now, when you hit someone, or when you do other things of that kind to them, you create it's actually an outside force. Like, actually, what's the best way I could draw this?
Like a wedge of some sort.
Like a wedge from the outside, and a wedge is a really good...
The red works. You can use the red if you want as well.
I will use the red for that, thank you. That's going to be much more useful. So let's say this is... So what the mother's trying to do is create this sort of state of just equilibrium, right? To restore you back to being whole. In that mode, life is amazing. Life is wonderful. Everything's light. Everything's free. You can do anything. You can switch out of one mode into another, and you can invent any fucking set of rules that you want, and as long as you can get someone else to play by the same rules, you're good to go. If you want to play with others, then go ahead. You just got to make sure that you're playing the same game. And someone in that mode is going to just be in play.
Yeah.
They're not going to be thinking or asking questions except in the context of a game. So questions, thinking, inside a game. All in the context of a game. Now, when it starts going off is when it stops being a game. When you keep doing it, and it ends up being for the purpose of survival. So, these natural qualities that we have can get completely subverted to another purpose entirely. So, game is what I'm going to call, it's almost like the mammalian brain. It's like the whole of your brain. Actually, it's not the mammalian brain, so I apologize. So that state is actually when the whole of your mind, everything, is in harmony. There's nothing at war with yourself. There's no part trying to dominate other parts. It's all working smoothly, including the survival part. It's doing its thing, you're doing your thing,
it kicks
everything
in
works smoothly.
only in times you actually need it. Your emotions are helping you make decisions.
When you need to be angry, it will be flowing through you rather than just like coming out in this weird, distorted way that most people do it. And it will be for a purpose, and then when it's over, it's over. That's it. Now these are these little red violations that have sort of crept in, that the mother's role was to restore, or the father. So that's early on. But something else can happen. This is what happens when someone else this is a symbol that they tend to use it for Illuminati and so on, but it's in many cultures, and I think it's because it has a certain emotional significance for the way that the mind works, that it's just a powerful symbol. So I should have drawn this in red, so I'll draw the eye in red. We see this in movies, we see this in art, everywhere. Something with a big solitary red eye that's focusing down. Yeah, or robot eye, or Sauron is the best I've seen. It's the most clear. So it tends to be a reptilian eye. I wonder why. Because when you see someone angry at you and pointing at someone, that's a reptilian response, not a mammalian response. So, and that part of their brain is active. So it's basically saying, one reptile to another, I've got you. You're not going to dominate me, I'm going to get you. And then what happens is, we're now playing this set of rules and not this one. The game is over, It's now life or death, survival, one or the other. And in that mode, the outsider, in their with basically just like that eye, and that if you just look at it like an eye pointing in many different ways, the same sort of symbol. That's that symbol that has so much power for people, because chances are they had parents who allow themselves to become assholes from time to time and just be like doing exactly that to their kids. That's my guess of where it comes from, but who knows where. But there's other interesting things about this. So the first time that someone from the outside violates your boundaries by just getting angry at you without any kind of real understanding being built, they're just getting angry at you and being a jerk about it. What's actually happening is them on the outside, like they stop being a whole complete person, they turned into a machine. In that mode, when someone is dominating you, they're being a machine. A single-minded reptilian type machine. They're like this. I'll just draw this sort of pyramid shape with like an eye on top of it. This thing is very pointy as well, which is I think another benefit of this symbol. It's like a violation.
It is like the eye pointing. It's kind of like a wedge as well. Like it's actually a very apt symbol.
And it's like an arrow in. So basically you see this eye, and it's just like a violation, and it goes all the way to the core of who you are. If someone does it, if someone gets you when your boundaries aren't ready. So you basically have this sort of triangular just wedge, just go straight to the heart. If someone goes, or never all the way, I think, with people, but often it can get close to that. And once it's in there, your response is to be like, what the fuck do I do with this thing, this alien invader, which you'll tend to see in many movies. Lots and lots of movies will be doing this. Yeah. An alien invasion tends to be from some sort of pyramid-shaped thing with reptilian aliens invading this pristine, wonderful, whole, complete Earth. Now, this is why this is so popular. Because it happened in their head. This just explains so well so many allegories that exist in history, in pop culture. Oh, yeah.
If you look at, I would say 10% of movies and books, you could transpose this on.
Oh, yeah. More than that.
And it's just insane.
All the hero's journey ones you can.
It's just, it's almost like we keep telling ourselves the same story over and over again.
Because it happened to us.
Yeah, and then it makes sense that, like... And you got this thing, Illuminati, right? I mean, I really looked into it, and okay, there was this secret society back in heyday, and it really doesn't have too much to do with whatever people consider Illuminati.
But they had that symbol, and that freaked people the hell out.
Yep. And today, when, for whatever reason, whether it's people wanting attention in show business, or whether it's some Freemasons recycling some symbols which are associated with what they do anyway.
Everyone does it in their art. Everyone. I do it in my art without even knowing it. I was drawing symbols of eyes and all this kind of nonsense without realizing it until I clued onto it recently.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, it's been noticed that once you start explicitly placing this symbol, the notion of a hierarchical secret establishment and the symbol. So, hierarchical secret power plus that symbol, people react. People react big time. I mean, you will find more views on YouTube for Illuminati control of the music industry than for actual power brokers actually controlling actual parliaments, congresses, legislation.
It's not like that. Like, it's not the music industry. I don't think is controlled by like some shady group. I know you don't believe that either.
But
some people believe that.
But the point is, and here it is.
Maybe they are, but I don't think they are. Yeah.
This symbol and the idea of secret controlling hierarchy together, like, get a reaction out of 9 out of 10 human beings brought up in the Western culture. And that in itself is like a very interesting phenomenon. Like, it clearly means that somewhere in our own psyche, we got some shit going on where hierarchy, evil eye, messing us up.
It gets worse.
And it's like, we can relate that something like this happened to us in our lives. Mm-hmm. And then when someone says that's going on in the world, then most people go, but yeah, of course it is. And then, yeah, Illuminati killed Tupac, or are making Katy Perry's videos for her, or I don't know, like, whatever the theory goes. But it's very much, I think it's a real universal aspect of most people's psyche. And I mean, let me repeat it for the 4th time. The connection of powerful secret hierarchy and the notion of evil eye controlling and messing you and your essence up to be something else. And, yeah.
There's a way that it happens. I got all this for myself in the last few weeks, so it's very new for me. But basically it was... I had an insight that let me be able to, like, something I've been depressed for a while and I didn't really know why, and I felt like it was something was disrupting my ability to feel fully in the way that I used to be able to, and except in sort of rare moments after I'd have a run or whatever. And it was like the part of me that was generating my whole sense of self was shut down. I couldn't keep it up. It was like just little parts of me were active at any one time, and the whole big picture of who I was shut down. All that was there was the sort of the overthinking and analyzing part. So I was collecting. I was in the mode of collecting information about the world, but I was only putting it together in very vague snippets in any time when I was emotional. Then I could integrate it a bit better. It took me having a huge breakthrough in my ability to just feel and to disrupt that default thinking pattern that's dominant in my mind normally. Currently, it's I of course I feel like I'm in thinking mode at the moment, so I'm in my normal thinking mode. But that ability to think and feel in one integrated package in flow was magnificent. I've never experienced it like this before to that extent in my life as it has been the last few weeks. And in that, it was like everything came together, finally. I could see things that I'd never been able to see before. I could see what all the conspiracy theorists think that they see, but I got it in the context of not... They make the mistake of being not introspective at all and thinking that they're talking about the world. I think that the battle that they're talking about, of the Illuminati, a triangle with an eye at the top of it, taking over a whole pristine, complete world, and violating it and taking over and subjugating everything to a single, all-controlling, single-minded, survival-oriented will, is what's happening inside their heads when their ego is eating them alive. That's what conspiracy theorists are. They are the Illuminati. They are that pyramid with the eye at the top that's harvesting their own souls.
But here's the...
Into their own head. They're doing it to themselves.
Here's the question I have. I mean, I wouldn't agree with that statement completely, although it's... I do see a lot of it to be the case. And perhaps the cause and effect of the way I would see it is somewhat different. It's like a question of when you say... It's a feedback, forward-backward feedback mechanism between two things.
Which one?
Much like if I say nature nurture, you know, like is it in society that shapes individual, or the individual that shapes society? And holy shit, like an individual shapes society, and society shapes individuals, and it's like a two.
There's no such thing as society.
But whatever.
If you consider that, it gives you a lot more freedom. Because then you can actually flip around from different views, and
I don't agree with that statement. I mean, I do agree that it's an abstraction that you can't quite pin down, and it's not a real thing the way this board is a real thing. But
if you don't buy into it, it's not real for you. But you're not even affected by it if you don't buy into it.
Well, let me I'm trying to get back to the notion. You said something about conspiracy theorists being the Illuminati, and the way I see it, like there's an occult.
I worded that weirdly.
Yeah. No, but there's an occult maxim that says, "As above, so below." In a sense, like
wow, I never got that before. That's great.
It just like you've got a spiral in your DNA that's at a certain angle, the same angle, and the same spirals repeat in solar systems, galaxies, trajectories of comets, and there is patterns in nature. Like your body has things like, okay, I've got my filtration system, power supply, brain, skin. Like your cell has its filtration system, its power supply, its skin, it's this and that. Like the building blocks of you are individual cells, which are not that different from you. They function in much the same way.
Mm-hmm. The neurons sort of thing.
Like, okay, talk about a skin cell. Your skin cell itself has a brain, which is like its membrane. It uses that to make sort of decisions. It has its own DNA. It has its own kids.
That's a good point. I never considered that.
It takes in food. It digests food. It throws out waste. It like lives, dies, and has kids. As I said, like
it
it's
has
crazy.
A library in the middle of it.
It has a library in the middle of it.
I don't know if it has free
senses.
will, but
it has senses. You know, like it. Well, free will. It has a.
Like it will do whatever it's
it has a
do.
limited. Perhaps your consciousness makes 28 million decisions in your life, and the consciousness of your skin cell makes 2,800. You know, you're 1,000 times more complicated a consciousness than it. But regardless,
it never occurred to me. That's such a cool idea.
Yeah,
it never occurred to me that. So in the same way that a neuron by itself has no thoughts, it's only when it's part of a greater network that thoughts happen. A skin cell could actually have a kind of consciousness when connected up with all the other skin cells collectively. That even though the individual skin cell doesn't have as efficient method of communication as nerves do, nevertheless there could still be some sort of overall communication happening that we just take for granted isn't happening just because it's not tapped into the neural network. But it may be another network of its own kind.
You pretty much nailed it, and where I was going with it is that the nature of the consciousness in this one, it just like as all these little consciousnesses that are very basic combine to make a bigger consciousness. We are a part of a bigger consciousness, and it's a part of a bigger consciousness, and like. It's not even, don't think of it as 50-50, but some aspect of the living, thinking being of Sergio Leone is a node, a neural node, is a thinking node in a bigger thinking network.
Right now, the two of us have created a collective consciousness, and it's probably, there's something in the space, it's not real, but like, it could be said that together in this conversation, there is something that has taken a life of its own that's using us to express this conversation for a purpose of its own, and it's using our nerves, our neural networks, and our memories and thoughts and feelings for its own sake. Even though it's not real, it's not tangible, it still exists as much as our own individual consciousnesses are not real or tangible. They are just the sum of their parts. So you and I have formed this collective consciousness. Now, unlike two single nerve cells, which don't really have any ability to do any thinking of their own, they're just informational input-output devices, we can do a hell of a lot of thinking, each of us ourselves. So with only two nodes, you can have a functioning collective consciousness because it will rely on each of us do a hell of a lot of thinking. So these aren't just normal nodes, they're super nodes with their own inbuilt brains. So you only need two. My question, I'm going to extrapolate this from here all the way.
Can I just... This is the way I see the kind of battle. Like, not the battle, the reality, right? If this is... What is this pyramid? You know how the pyramid is always removed? This is like removed. And you have that.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I never understood that.
Like, I've listened to this guy, Jonathan Adam Patson.
The
like,
capstone.
He described it in the perfect way, and this makes the most sense for me. Like, this thing here, isn't that... It's that you have a hierarchy, you have a structure, right? And it exists on a scale that there is a secret society. There's a couple thousand guys. And they've arranged themselves in silly levels, and they do little gimmicky ceremonies of perfect obedience to the next level, and they worship non-existing things. And
7 billion people do this, not just 1,000 people.
Hear me
Sorry.
out. This is the whole thing. That's what they do. And this stands for them getting the rest of us
Yes.
to do whatever it is that they do. It is like a scalar projection. It's like making that little pyramid that already exists in their lives, in their little fucking messed up world where they do what they do, and trying to get the whole world to behave the same way. And
There's a
like
mistake.
Scale it like a scalar jump of the whole thing.
There's one mistake. The diagram is correct.
Yeah.
No one has ever gotten to the top. I don't believe that this thing has ever existed in material form, or could, unless you built some fucking robot version of it. But I don't think it ever existed in physical form, or even embodied in a single person in its pure form. Such a thing would probably kill a person, because that would become so self-destructive. Because what it is in its pure form is absolute desire for absolute control and nothing else. Anything that's not that, like a desire for money or wealth or influence or whatever, is some distraction from the pure goal of pure power that entity, whatever that is, that force has. And so, for example, even a psychopath who thinks he's like outsmarted the system and is playing the game better than anyone else and blah, 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 has gotten all the way to the top. The problem is that he's actually a puppet of an imaginary entity that doesn't even exist except in his own mind. This entity is using him and his lust for pleasure and desire for power and desire for money in order to create a leadership class that will focus its energy better. So what I'm proposing here is that a collective consciousness is a kind of consciousness that's unique because it doesn't have a body. It doesn't have a soul. Sorry, rephrase, not a soul. It doesn't have a body, so it can't die except unless its individuals forget it and create a new one.
But I think I totally, like, hear me out here. I think I'm about 7 billion people.
Yeah, so
I believe that we will always have some level of collective consciousness. We'll always have a collective consciousness.
And by the way, that triangle, isn't it? Like, that's just a part of it.
Here's how I see it. If you have this triangle, right? This is like some, in my view, it's an ideology. It's a corrupt ideology. It's a group of people, and mostly a better explanation is rather than a group of people, it's a corrupt ideology. And this corrupt ideology...
It's a mind virus.
Yeah. And the way they see it, right? This is the rest of us. And their vision, their hope, is to extrapolate this mindset onto everybody. And for that to become Earth's collective consciousness. But people within here, just like you have cells.
Yeah.
If you eat well, you exercise, you sleep. Your cells are consistently getting nutrients and what they need, and they're thriving, and you're giving them new experiences, and the signals that come from your mind, your consciousness, your brain, your glands, replicate, die. Well, it's a matter of faith, but these cells that you have do what they're told because they see that there is some overall system in charge, and it seems to be working well. It seems to be benefiting.
Oh, they don't even decide that. They just go along with it.
They go along, but they choose to go along.
No,
My point is, like,
I've never seen a cell disobey me.
What do you think cancer is?
I actually rephrase, not disobey me. I've never seen a cell rebel Except for cancer, maybe, yeah, that's a good point. But that's...
You see...
It's not deciding to. That's an outside force. Because you can actually make a cell turn into a cancer with just a cosmic ray or whatever, or a chemical. So even then, it didn't choose to become cancerous. It's just the chemicals in the environment made it become cancer.
It can spontaneously, spontaneous cures happen all the time, which is one of the fundamentally interesting things.
Or just unexplained, not spontaneous.
But what I'm getting at is that people, the way blocks are, there is a thing. To give you an example, think of it as a school. It's structured with authorities. You've got principals, vice principals, coordinators, teachers, and then they project their whole notion and what they have onto the kids, and the kids assimilate that. Now,
it's not what they say; it's how they do it.
But
that's the thing that imprints them.
Now, think of it this way: you're raising your kids, and maybe they go to school at the age of 11, 12, and they're independently minded, critical thinkers who are not tending to worship authority, who have strong moral values, who do good things. Fundamentally, what's going to happen in a school where 95% of human beings in that environment are playful, open-minded, loving creatures, they're going to change the school. The school is not going to change them. In other words, there is an effect in both directions of you. I have seen it, especially one of the most interesting things, even to me, is how different a human being I am with Class A versus Class B.
So you adapt to the students.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
But
you're not forcing them to be.
They set the standards. You know, you're going to teach them what they're willing to learn, and no more nor less. You're going to behave with them in a mode that makes that relationship work. And if they behave a certain way and you're authoritarian, it's like the situation you're set in with 25 kids or whatever. Sometimes, a teacher is going to be soft and nice in 4 out of 5 of his classes, but the class of whatever ratbags, he may have to take a hard line. And the point is, I believe that even people in positions of authority, if they're not complete psychopaths, through their humanity, empathy, etc., react to the people that they're interacting with, that they even have authority over. You see what I mean? Like, if I put you in charge of, even take this notion of hierarchy. You are working for a company, you're getting paid, and on one hand you've got some very non-thinking, non-critical thinkings, whatever, not too friendly individuals on one hand, and you're managing that team, you need to get results. You will be forced to go, okay, carrots and sticks, and we're going to race them against each other. We're going to have fucking rankings or whatever it takes to motivate them. But if, on the other hand,
I don't think that's necessarily the case.
No. But on the other hand, if 5 very different people you're in charge of, regardless of what it is that you would eventually do or what you try to do, you would be very different with 2 different groups.
Yeah.
Perhaps
You'd adapt.
And what I'm saying is if this pyramid, if people had no desire to subject themselves to hierarchies, that even the people that are currently up in this level would just fall off because they say, well, this should...
No one's at the top. No one's in that top triangle.
No one's here. I don't believe anyone's here.
No one's above the gap. No one. Not even the people who think they're running it. That's, I think, the trick. Because the people who run the world, I don't think that they actually...
I think it looks... Sorry, dude. I think it looks like this. And I think that this fucking...
Oh, there's layers. I mean...
No. I think it looks like this, alright? At the very top of it...
pretty cool.
at the very top of it, is this notion of the mind, this idea of ultimate control, which is just an ideal. An ideal,
The pure form.
Yeah, an ideal doesn't exist in objective reality. It's not really even helpful to think about things and then this is what exists in objective reality. A bunch of people that are obsessed with control that are really there. They're fighting each other like more often than they're doing anything else, but that there is like even the way that just monies are distributed in the world will tell you, it's like half the wealth is controlled, half the wealth on the planet. I mean,
that doesn't have to do with anything.
It's like 6,000 people.
There's something very weird and messed up with how wealth is distributed, but it doesn't need to be equal. It just is weird.
Yeah, I don't.
It's distorted now, for sure.
Yeah, I don't believe in. I totally disbelieve the notion that everybody should have the exact same share. I don't.
There's a different way to come about all of that. Yeah. Sometimes it's easy to say what's wrong. What's fair is a very soft, subtle, personal preference, whatever thing. We can talk about it forever. Yeah.
But it's very easy to draw a collective boundary of like what's too much, and then within that, it's a conversation to be had and a trial and error approach.
Yeah.
But what I see there are people here. They are governed by a perpetual war against everything, a desire to control everything, and then that desire is represented by that black block there.
Can I try something?
Yeah.
I'd just like to make a slight modification. I'll undo it if it doesn't work. Yeah, let's have a look at this. Because there was something that a piece of art that I've been working on it's like basically it looks something like this, but a bit different. But now that I can see that gap there, I see that's definitely necessary. So let's say we have this thing. Here's the piece of art. I'm not going to fill this whole thing with people, but let's just say that we have people. This is people who are buying into this whole thing. And that's some sort of monster, so I can correctly give it arms. There, that's a person now. Alright, so there's no one guy at the top. Even if there was just one guy who was at the top, he would still be on this level. And they have levels of people beneath them and so on, but this is people in reality. This is the pure idea that could not be, that I don't think the human mind is capable of grasping purely without being just very self-destructive and ending things. And I think that's the problem with this whole model probably the way of correcting it in the long run is the people who are running it, they're benefiting from it now. But the closer they get to their goal, they're actually puppets, the people who are running it, because they're puppets of this thing that doesn't exist, this idea. And it's trying to purify itself and get stronger and stronger and stronger. If they actually succeed in doing that, they're going to come to a point where they have to choose between wealth and control. This is what socialist dictatorships and communist dictatorships do. They realize that they're controlled by this monster, this imaginary Sauron type thing. He cannot yet take physical form. I remember that line from the movie. Very, very nicely done. By the way, I forgot the most important thing.
Yeah.
Now, so, can't yet take physical form, whatever, but there's all these people in it at the top who, let's say they get really close to achieving their goal. They're going to get to the point where they're not getting, like, that, everything that these people want, all along the way, the things that distract them, the prizes along the way are social success, looking good, getting, nice stuff, lots of money, getting the goodies that came from people with souls. So people who have souls, whoever, the more connected they are to it, the more creative they are. Like an explosion of light, and they make stuff real. That's people who are really in touch with their souls. And it's them who are the engine that give all of the productivity and wealth that all of these people enjoy. And everyone is in this pyramid somewhere, unfortunately.
There's just like, I would just correct you with one little thing that I always resented about sort of Ayn Rand, and she's very right that there is a class of parasitic bureaucrats that just live off parasiting of white productive people. But unfortunately, it's a cascading scale. Below the government bureaucrat politician, there's people that are both creative and producing and parasitic to different extents.
That's what we're getting to next. Yeah. So, because it's always a continuum, right? So you have people who, some people who are normal, in other words, broken and conflicted, are part-time creators and part-time consumers of their own creativity. Some of the time they're trying to control and regulate and suppress and shape, so that every spark of creativity that they could be capable of ends up being put into a little box and shaped in this distorted way by their ego. But at least it's something out there. It's like their creative force at least made it out, and then they had to organize it and distort it and whatever with it. But they got it out. It's the driving force that keeps them going. People who don't have one at all cannot survive alone. So what they need to do is find people who have them and get theirs. That's it's essentially what the government has turned poor people into. It's essentially what people who go and work for the government end up becoming if they let themselves. And it's what politicians and so on are. People who don't create themselves. Because they can't, either they could, but they're locked inside, so they can't get it out, or they can't, because they don't have one. But do you mind if I just take it a bit further?
Yeah.
So, you got these people who, the question is, if you just look outside of this whole model, because one thing that people who go insane doing is they think that this is the collective consciousness of humanity, and they get despaired. But this is not the collective consciousness of humanity. This isn't life. This is just a small part of life that has grown to gargantuan proportions, but really doesn't have to dominate your thinking as an individual. But those people who have almost no barriers or limited involvement of this world inside themselves, getting in the way, their souls just express themselves. They just create what they want to create. They have an integration between their mind and their feelings, and they're not at war with themselves, so they actually just create without any issues.
I mentioned Mark Passio to you. You're going to have to see some of his information. He does, he says something that's, again, just gold.
Yeah.
Like, living is making, getting to a stage where your intellectual thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are all aligned in the same direction.
It's integrated.
Yeah.
It's all flow.
Perhaps one thing I've had an idea in my mind for a long time, and it might as well look into the camera. I might even cut this out and say it on its own. But I think secret societies don't run the world. I think secret societies, let's take Freemasons for example. I think they create human beings, which are like pyramid-shaped building blocks that make it possible to build a pyramid like that. But there's never really, just like you said, there's never really the top. So
pyramid-shaped building blocks. That's that's how I picture it.
Imagine this.
Lego.
You're entering some secret, and then you go, I swear on my everything, whatever. I will do whatever. I'll be a part of this. I have a higher loyalty to you than I do to my family, my everything. So you're swearing this allegiance to something you don't know, you don't or understand. That's completely rational to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do this like 33 times before you get to the top. And constantly you're doing these rituals, which again, they tell you on one stage it's because of the earth goddess, and no, it's this, and then they tell you a different story at every stage. So, like, you're abandoning rationality to ascend in authority.
Mm.
Oh, like, kill the goat? Yep, that, I swear to whatever little I'll do the dance on your blocks, put me in a coffin, like...
Yep.
And so, who graduates out of this? People that, instead of looking at objective reality...
I didn't know any of this, by the way. This is normal
like,
to me. Yeah.
You know, people who, instead of looking at objective reality and, like, how do I best understand the world that I live in so I can, you know, interact with it in productive and creative ways... Not people like that. People that graduate are people that go... those people have power if I align myself to them and do whatever they say. If I believe...
what they're about?
Yeah. If I believe whatever they believe, I'll make it.
I thought they were just, like, kind of slightly eccentric but nice people who make community projects and stuff.
Community projects are fucking, like, nothing. They're, like, 1% of the money they have. But here's the thing. Think about... And who ascends to these high levels?
And I thought they just had, like, odd choice of symbols that were unfortunate and got them lots of attention from conspiracy theorists. But now that I think of it, okay, so if any of that's going on, which is probably the case for many organizations, then
but think
probably
of it this
not
way.
conscious in that way.
Think of it this way. Who ascends to 30 level plus, right? So this guy who's just... ranted off like weird occult stuff he doesn't truly understand, did whatever they're told, changed his ideology 28 times from bottom to the top, completely lost any sense of critical thinking in terms of like, you told me something on level 2, something else on level 5, and something completely contradicting at level 7. Go fuck yourself in your silly games. No. Yes. We believe in Lucifer, no problem. Oh, wait, we don't. It's Baal. Oh, like, it's all about the 2 pillars. Like, as I said, at levels, it changes drastically. And supposedly, that's okay. So, think about who gets there. Like, a very obedient, compliant human being. And if some of these rituals, for example, Skull and Bones, they recorded them, they like, fight and piss, they fight and shit, and they get pissed on. Like, imagine you record that. So you've got a herd of people that for 15 years have been doing the most bizarre illogical shit out of desire to climb in authority. They've done whatever you told them. Mm. They helped their brothers who are not really deserving or worthy to ascend to higher positions ahead of people that are.
Yeah.
So you've got highest level of obedience stick. And they've attended these rituals, which are, in the least, so fucking embarrassing they would get anybody fired from public office. You have that on camera. So you've got blackmailed, perfectly obedient people, and they're sitting in as parliamentarians and judges. And if you're, like, up there, there is no secret. There is no secret knowledge. There is no real... occult or like angels or demons or philosopher's stones or secrets to all of that's just myths. The secret is of how few control the many, and by the time people ascend through this power structure,
I don't even know if they're conscious of that.
I don't think
they're conscious. Why would anyone choose to be conscious of that when they could choose to be unconscious of it?
I think that this, you're right. They could be completely unconscious of it, but I think this...
They're just doing it.
If this is Freemasonry...
This is what you do if you're that kind of person.
If this is it, if this is like the organization, right? It exists there. I'm saying there's people out there, so call them power broker, whatever. Mm-hmm. Power broker. 1, power broker 2.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going on? Maybe a few people from here are aware of what's going on, but 99% of it is unconscious. And they're going, we need pawns. these bureaucracies need to be so fucking reliable. We need people in government that
I don't
are
even
going
think
to
they think we need prawns. I think they're just like, there's a system that's not properly controlled. It needs more control. Look at it, so under disarray. It needs to be controlled. Because I'm like that when I'm in this mode, which is sometimes if I'm being perfectionistic in my work. Then I'm like that with my work.
Well,
I'm like, oh, this thing isn't properly integrated. It needs control. But although what I try to add is integrity to it rather than control, it ends up often being control.
What I'm saying is that people like that take people from here and put them there as reliable bricks in this pyramid. This guy is perfect. He does what he's told and he's blackmailed. He puts it there. This guy's perfect, and they just launch him there. And it's kind of like, if you're building a pyramid of control, it's just like the mafia. Make you swear the craziest oaths of loyalty, have always have the consequences. You know they're going to kill your family or whatever if you don't disobey them. So I mean, these guys are obedient, and they're blackmailed, and they make perfect bluffs for this pyramid.
That looks like a pyramid scheme. It's the same. It's the psychology of a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, like Amway Network 21.
What they're all about is you got to build your pyramid. You got to. Oh my god, that's so. No one. They always.
And outside of those pyramid schemes are power brokers, and inside a pyramid.
But they're not conscious of it. They're just.
I think
the Amway people aren't like evil. They're not conscious of it. They're just doing it because they think that's what you got to do.
Listen,
that's how they think.
This is where I disagree with you. I think the people in the Amway pyramid. Okay, there's two classes of, say, Amway people. People in this pyramid that are making a lot of money, that are thinking that this is how it's got to be done, and these guys are making a lot of money, and they're bricks high up in the pyramid, and they're saying Amway's great, and look at all the money I made, and I want to help you do the same. I want to make your dreams come true, and they're, as I said, they're bought into the system. They're perfect bricks for the pyramid. They have their
smug, sly, I know something you don't smiles, which I wonder.
And then there's people outside that invented the whole Amway system that don't believe in it at all. They know it's a pyramid scheme, and they're going, fucking A!
See, here's the problem with the conspiracy view. So when I was trying to design, I had a business idea, and my thought was to borrow ideas from the pyramid model, but not the whole. I didn't like the overall structure of it, but I did like the idea. There are certain ideas of it that I liked, and because I thought that they were practical ideas. Now I could see that someone like me would implement such a system, and then find out later on that it's sort of grown into this sort of monster that I didn't intend for it to be. Because it would be like because this is how I think it often begins. Like, I don't think that it's with bad intentions that. I mean, very few people start out with things with conscious bad intentions. The best example I can think of is narcissists. Narcissists are people who are in denial about fucking everything. They go through life. They're the most manipulative, or second most manipulative people that you're likely to meet. But they believe that they're the shit, and they are completely in denial of how ashamed they are and how insecure they are, and they'll go through life doing all these things, causing a wake of devastation in their track. But they'll be like, "Well, I'm special, so what's the big deal?" And it's like they're oblivious to their. So, for instance, narcissists will tend to be presidents and that kind of thing. I don't think that they're often psychopaths, but some of them are. Yeah. But because the ones like who believe they're on some mission and that they just have to do this thing, or who are all about survival, whatever, they tend to be more that kind of person who runs away from any view that they're bad.
But again, what type of person? Imagine there's like a secret society, right, based on doing little hoodoo things that you really don't get. I mean, they all seem to be pregnant with some deeper meaning, but you never arrive at anything real solid, and it keeps changing. Like, what kind of person would want to climb indefinitely to the next level, and the next level, and the next level, and the next level?
People who buy into the system who... Lots of people want power who aren't...
You see what I mean? Who are the people in here?
If you want someone else to do your thinking for you, you're like, right for this.
Look at this. Who are the people here? All they see, this is the advertising. people on the top of this pyramid are getting in the top of the real world pyramid. They're judges and they're presidents and this and that. They're going like, yeah, I want to be... And this is how you get there. You climb up this pyramid. You just do this. You just do it. And I think...
Maybe they're just like, hey, I got successful. It works.
Yeah.
They probably don't like...
I completely agree with that. You know, like, I think...
Maybe they don't see it's wrong or anything. Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
The only part where I think you and I differ... I mean, I think we're seeing secret societies in much the same way. Like,
it's not even secret.
Factories.
It happens right in the open.
Yeah.
This is most organizations.
But that's what they're called.
Yeah.
Dude, that's what they're called. But anyway, I think that there are real, you know...
people who are channeling it directly, who get all the way to the source, who get the whole picture.
I think there's people somewhere...
Masterminds.
Yeah. I think there's people that get... Think about it this way. Just like...
I've met some of them.
Yeah.
They're that kind of person. They're very charming and irresistible to speak to, but dodgy.
Think of it this way. Like, you know what an oligarchy is? Like, imagine the company is run by the board of directors. And imagine every one of those board of directors had 5% of the company. It's whatever. It's 20 people. Mm-hmm. And there's an overwhelming consensus that we're doing wonderful things, right? But then there's one or two guys that understand what's going on. And one of the, maybe two guys understand, and one of them will go like, man, we're not really doing all these wonderful things. And the other guy is like, this is the ideology that these people believe. I could use their ideology to get them to do what I want, and like, you see what I mean? There are people...
Cold.
Yeah, there are cold, calculating people that want more for themselves and less for everybody else, and are...
They're still here, though. They're not up there. They're still in here.
No, I don't...
Because they don't want... They want stuff.
You're right.
But they want stuff. They still want stuff.
This is the world. These are secret societies. I believe that there's people literally using secret societies like I would use a military academy.
Or personal development organization sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I've seen...
that they are using that as a recruiting ground for pawns. For, like, controllable people to put in high positions. I really think that there are people outside of secret societies going, yeah, I mean, these things are fucking awesome. They're the best. We get to hire these guys, and they're perfect middlemen for our little pyramid. They're like blocks of the right shape. And
I've never even thought of... It's such an alien way of thinking to me, but I've seen it everywhere when I think about it. When I think of how I want to create an organization, I'm like, I want to find people who are amazing and have them all like almost being like partners in making this cool stuff happen. And I'll make something, then they'll respond with something cool of their own. And that's how I imagine it. But I don't think of like, I shall have some pyramid and I will need someone down there on level 3 to support the people above. Yeah, it's such a weird way of thinking to me, but maybe it works, but I don't think it does. I don't think so.
Think about how governments work, how every corporation...
No, they don't work.
Well,
they do work in a way, but
it's every time a hierarchy, right? Every time a hierarchy where...
They're even incompetent at evil. Which they are, but yeah.
Where absolute loyalty and reliability is rewarded 100 times more than honesty and good ideas. If you are doing what you're told by your superiors with 100%, and you do exactly as you're told, and you get it done on time as you're told, you are gonna go boom, boom, boom. You are good. If you go, what you're telling me, sir, is going to eventually result in bloodshed and mayhem, and I believe there's a better way, and this may be a better way. You don't belong in that fucking pyramid, man. You will be kicked out of it sooner than you can blink. So, and I'm sorry, but those people that work on a high moral level and equal footing of exchanging of ideas, they can't operate in here.
I've seen it. They can't. They stick out like a sore thumb, and everyone around them is like, "What the fuck are you doing? Shut up and let us keep doing our bullshit." And then this one person's like, "No, you people are you have no... What is wrong with you people?
Yep.
I'm speaking up about this, and everyone else is like, just don't do that. Keep your head down.
That's been.
It's like, whoa.
I don't know. To some extent, that's been the story of my life, man.
Well, there's something I'd put to you. This whole pyramid nonsense should take around 0.1% of your time, or if that. It's not something that really matters except when it gets in your way, and then you're just like, all right, what am I gonna? Here's this old thing again. Time to do whatever we have to do to step around it or work within its bullshit rules. Do whatever it requires just so that I can get back to doing
what my dreams are. Yeah.
Yes. Now here's what comes to mind. Do you mind if I erase some of this?
Yeah. You can take all of it out.
Because I'm going to. I can make the case for the free market.
2 hours, 54 minutes in, man. This is like...
It's alright, we can re-edit it. Or you can re-edit it if you want.
Man, it'll take... I don't have much time these days.
I'll create another video at some point, just
hey, dude, I'll give you the...
Believe that.
Hey, I'll give you the copy of all of this.
Nice.
And
cool.
then you can do whatever editing you feel like, man. I mean...
The moon. Yeah,
because there's like 5 separate videos in this thing, I actually think.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the problem. It wasn't... I'll make a video based on everything that I'd been thinking about the last few weeks, and because I thought of a video that I wanted to make, and when I was in the zone, it was just coming out of my mouth exactly as it should. So it's been a bit disjointed in this video, and I've been like losing track, and I've been giving into tangents and stuff like that. But when I get like a bit more of a clear, I'll basically write down and start from there and make a video from there. But so let's go back here to your child. You're born, you're whole and complete. Occasionally, when there's some need or some survival concern, you get slight ripples in the. In fact, I'm gonna redraw that a little bit. Slight disturbances or ripples, and that's the word disturbed. A disturbance. So you're whole and complete, but there's like some disturbances. That's really too messy. I'm sorry. I'll use green for that. So you're whole and complete, but there's some disturbances for things that you're not that your needs aren't quite getting met. Maybe you're hungry or whatever. Your mother's role or your parents' role is to bring that back out, so that you can be whole and complete again. In that realm of whole and complete, it's just there's no end to where you end and another person begins. It's just you are the universe. Everything is connected. La 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 la. Everything's wonderful, and that's at the point where you start separating and becoming another person from your mother. It's kind of like there's the Earth and the Moon. And the moon is like a stabilizing force on the Earth that keeps it all there. So it's still close by. It's still there. It's not too far off, but it's separate from you. So there's the Earth and there's the moon. There's you and your mother, and still you're in that realm of you're whole. You're complete. There's play. You experience your soul. Life is great. Now, what happens is this damn thing. From another person, someone who's in robot, reptile, survival control mode, comes in, like some alien invader from some other realm, and is like, we're going in for the kill. And it just goes in with no regard, completely violates the boundaries that are still young and haven't formed properly of this person, and if it happens before the separation, that's even worse. The earlier it happens, the worse. But it's basically like this big dagger going straight in, and looking in as well. You can see this almost like as a triangle hole in your soul with an eye from the outside looking in. It's an alien, creepy eye that doesn't belong to you. That reptilian eye is looking into you from a triangular hole, is another way of looking at it. So basically you have this thing. Now, people who are effective at dealing with their stuff in life, because over life, what will happen to you is this. So you get one of these in you, right? It's a distortion. What you forget is that nothing ever left this other person to go into you. So this is the other person. How can I represent that? Another person, their ship leaves them, their little thing leaves them and goes into you, and then you absorb it. You got one in you now. And the best way I can think of it is, I'll just keep it drawn red actually. So you get this thing in you now. It's in you. You might get others from other people or at different times. These intrusions from the outside. And at around the age of 2, when you start forming your boundaries and becoming a separate person, you'd be like, I gotta fight back. I gotta push these things back out, whatever they are. And so what you do is you've now learned the strategy. So you now develop one of these of your own to hit back. That's what your survival brain does. So now, you start sending them back out to try and undo the daggers that were going in before.
That's a very interesting analogy.
But the problem is you can't do it properly, and you can't do it all. And the daggers are still here. Everything that you push out is still, you're keeping it alive by believing in it. The thing that keeps this alive is it's not whether someone else did this to you or not. That's the real kicker. The thing that causes suffering. If you're a depressed, unhappy, mentally ill person, my guess is what's happening.
9 out of 10 bullies had violence done to them, either by other bullies.
They got the virus.
And that's a very interesting. As a kid, I lived a pretty sheltered. I really. The hardest thing I was it was just a complete failure to understand, why would you want to behave?
Same deal. What the fuck? Why are you? Why are you doing this? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. It took me a while. I was probably 10, 11 before it was okay, just responding really violently seems to be the best option, and that's fine, let's go that way. But my most painful, hardest thing to understand was why would you, even when other kids were bullied, I was ostracized by going, but why are you doing it to the guy? What's he done to you? Why, man? What? It was just a failure to.
You didn't have that streak of sadism in you, that desire to hurt that they were infected by.
And I don't know, man. I don't think that. I don't think that it. There's scales, man. There's malicious people. And then there's people that went through a malicious phase. Growing up, I've seen...
People tend to get malicious when they're low.
Probably 2 out of 3 people that I've seen bullying others would, a few of them grew up to be, really amazingly compassionate and generous people.
Well.
But... yeah, I'd say approximately a third just remain terrible human beings, and
that's gotta be bleak. Yeah.
But it's not. I think that there is some level of this that is not real, that is simulated by, that people behave a certain way, that they hurt others because it seems to be the done thing. And even if they've never really been daggered themselves, they're going, there seems to be 2 kinds of people here. People taking it and people dishing it out. I better dish it out because I won't be found. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're in the mode of that particular strategy.
Yes.
There's something to it though, which is these things aren't even real.
No.
But what has them be real is that you believe that they're real. Not just think that. This is why in being intellectual makes no difference to your emotional issues. If you have emotional issues, and thinking it actually just takes you further out because you're not feeling. It's feeling and fully, wholeheartedly believing that these things aren't true that makes them go away. And that's what therapy is all about, getting people to a place where they believe that these things aren't true. Because someone puts something in like, you're not good enough, you're bad, you're weak, what's another one they'll do? You're not smart. Or, there's all these things that I've seen so many people. Everyone has like different ones, but I've seen so many people like when they say what their thing is, I'm like, my God, like someone said that to you, and you're ugly. There's another one. You're ugly. So you get all these things right, and the strategy is kind of like, I don't know if that's quite right, but it's more like this takes energy. It's a conscious strain, and this is like the experience of anxiety. If you want to, what the thing that fucks people up the most is when you give them one of these. This is running out. When you give them one of these, that has a short circuit built into it that tells them that they are bad for doing something good. So you tell someone that the thing that makes you feel best, which is sex, is bad. Then you got them in a loop, and every time they do something that feels good, they get deeper in the hole, and every time they get deeper in the hole, they just feel lower, and then they're just in this horrible cycle, and then this virus starts growing and growing and growing until it occupies their whole. It's like a spiral, growing and growing. And this is what happens this is what the danger is of language. If you teach children a non-objective language, where there's all these abstract ideas, eventually they're going to get confused, or worse, you're going to say something that's confusing or even false to them, that's going to trap them in a logic trap that doesn't make sense, that's going to short-circuit their brain and get their survival mode more and more and more active, and spreading into other areas.
I would say the whole, I believe that religion isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when religion is something that kids learn as a part of an upbringing, it just think of all the shame and all the confessions and all the whole the deal that Catholicism does, and it's
built on this model.
Yeah,
religion comes from. Religion is when you see this. When this thing first comes, you'll notice there's something missing from this picture. The moon's gone. The connection with the mother, the connection with the soul, is gone. As soon as this is in, and you're present to it, and you're experiencing it, all of the mammalian emotions disappear, the party stops, and you're no longer having fun. It's no longer a game anymore. So that's when the kid's crying, because either they're just something disturbed them, or they actually had some violation. Some kid played too hard. Some kid played too rough. A bit of a violation happened. Someone cries.
I think bizarrely, it's almost like in my life experience, and as you're saying this, I think love is a tangible thing, like a really.
It's in this world, that's love. That's
because
what you feel.
The way, especially with my mother, but really both parents, if you are loved unconditionally, absolutely, things like this are going like, it just seems like trivial, and who gives a shit, like.
Yeah, you push it back. You're like, that doesn't belong to me, you push it out. That's what boundaries are. You push out the foreign invader. It's their nonsense.
It's not, I think, with a few ex-girlfriends, it's like, oh, what's your biggest fear in life? And I've heard this more than once, like, nobody in the world loves me. And I think, geez, man, I'd like never, ever, not for a day in my life, even consider that a possibility. Not just for myself, but not for anyone else. Like,
yeah, so
you were someone's child, man. Like, someone must love
that people would have that
unconditionally. Like,
not always.
And I would say that right there is like almost the best, biggest, most powerful antidote. Like, kid, like me, your mom, whatever. We're not we may not be perfect, but like we love you more than anything, and our comfort, safety, is second place to yours for at least as long as you are not a fully mature person able to, you know, make your way for yourself in the world. But like, you know what I mean? Like, you just feel that I am valuable, I am powerful, and I'm like almost importantly, never had that thought when I was a kid, but I can imagine it was going on in my subconscious. Like, you know, people will pick on you, tell you stuff, and I always wondered. Some kids used to be genuinely hurt and cry, and I was like, but I know I'm awesome. Like, it's okay. Like,
You can say whatever you want.
Like, it's like, I guess, I don't know. Like, if it makes you feel good,
Because you had a good foundation.
like, I don't know. Like, it always, because things like that, you know, would make other kids cry, and I was always like looking at them and going, but like,
Were you responsible for generating your own, like remembering this is where I end and other people begin? Like did you take responsibility for really thinking that stuff through and making it clear?
like, I really don't know.
Or like now, if someone says some bullshit to you, do you resist is it ever a temptation for you to just be passive-minded and go along with it? And then you'd be like, hang on, wait a minute, no. This is where I end and you begin. Screw that. That's not me. You ever have that?
I don't quite perfectly understand the question. Like, I end and you begin. This is where you're, like...
Boundaries.
Boundaries. I'll perhaps give you an example.
Because it's something that I sometimes forget. And then I remember, oh, fuck, boundaries. No, I gotta stop taking on someone else's bullshit.
The notion of, let's say, criticism, or, like, I make a YouTube clip, I say some stuff, and people like mouth off and say terrible things. And, like, you know, I was talking to Krishna, and he's like, man, it really hurts me.
YouTube
shit.
comments.
And I'm like, sometimes I'm like mildly entertained, and I think, okay. Sometimes I'm like concerned for the person. Like, you know, like, whoa, man, if that's going on in your mind, like, poor you. Like, so rarely do I actually take something to heart. Like, mind you, if I knew you for many years and you tell me some criticism or something, I could be up all night thinking about it.
Yeah.
But if
yeah, I feel there's some weight behind it.
You know, because I'd be thinking, man, like, this person knows me really well. All right, so I do think out there are people that know me and understand me. And even when my parents are wrong about certain things, you know, when my mom says or my dad says something, you know, people, for example, at one stage I was playing a lot of poker, and then people have negative preconceptions about gambling that cannot ever be erased, right? And when my parents bring things like that up, I mean, I know I can't explain it to them, but it really genuinely hurts me, and it makes me feel guilty when I'm playing, and it shouldn't, but if that came from virtually anybody else, it would not register. Do you understand? Like, not register. It would be like it wasn't said. It'd be like, yeah, like, you really don't know. Like, the point is, I know that my parents don't quite know what they're talking about, but they're my parents, and somehow I feel that almost like they're a part of me, but fundamentally they own me.
They actually
sorry, they don't own me. Like, they know me. They know
There's
me.
Less
like,
of a division between you and them.
Yeah.
It's just like you don't have it as an option to put a wall up between you and them.
And so I have this. In other words, when you say these boundaries, I presume I use my boundaries all very well. I don't...
Like a flexible shield.
Yeah, like, I don't... When people are sort of aggressive or negative towards me, like, quite often I feel no urge to respond in kind and, like, destroy their self-confidence. I mean, I've done that. I feel...
Never.
I've done that in the past, but it just...
doesn't sit right, does it? It feels like it wasn't necessary. Because you don't want them to hurt. You just want them to stop.
It feels good the minute you do it, and then when you look at sort of the longer term, see what I mean? Like you always want to do things for a reason. If you're doing something, you do it for a reason. If someone's annoying you on a daily basis, or you don't want this person to talk to you, if there is a reason, if this is the most effective thing to do, then you do it. But if some YouTube comment comes in, and I could like waste 20 minutes of my time making someone feel horrible about themselves, like it's a really, really bad use of my time. Terrible. You know, even if I try to have some compassionate communication, perhaps not. But if it's someone from my office and I work there, well, it's a different thing. I presume I could either try to have a compassionate understanding with a person, or if I thought they're incapable of having a compassionate understanding, I could lift up my physical or whatever, probably intellectual self-defense, and, you know, quickly make them realize that I'm a terrible target because they're going to receive it 5 times worse than they're giving it.
Oh, yeah.
But quite...
I have just one thing. My version of that is, I'll just respond with something that is completely, beautifully, as brilliant as I can make it. Just as this thing that's just like to put that in the space, and it would look like I'm like above it all and so on. But really, what's going on is behind the scenes is, and that's why I'm better than you, because I'm not sinking to that level. And I realize that when I'm posting from that place, it's still from that desire to win.
Yeah.
Whereas there's another place I can post from or reply from, which is more like, either compassionate or just being straight up, hey, you're being a dick. You don't need to be, I get what you're doing, whatever, but no, you're being a bit of a dick. And, don't really feel like getting involved with this. And you're not actually saying, like, fuck you. You're just being like, hey, I'm not participating in this.
Yeah, I, like, pretty much, it's it sounds very similar to, like, very similar to what I would, like, I never go spouting hate or swearing or calling.
No, because that wasn't like, superior.
Yeah. You're right. And there is some level
you want to outclass them in some way.
There is a level of a choice, whether you're taking the moral high ground and outclassing them, or whether you want to compassionately connect and understand the reasons behind their frustration. And I think every time you look at the person and you decide, and I don't say that you should try to compassionately communicate with every single human being, because that takes time and that takes energy, and some people are not after that. Some people are not after that. Some people just want a spout of hate, and you want to diffuse them in the most elegant way possible so they go away. And like, you kind of make those decisions one person at a time, I suppose, and that's it. Like, even
that's true.
Violence is supposedly, I mean, it's not a bad analogy. If some random guy in a club comes up to you, like, well, what are you looking at? Like, in some type of domineering, bullyish way, right? If it's in a club and I'll never ever see that guy again in my life, I'll be like, oh, I apologize, mate.
Just try and...
I'm really sorry. I'm actually on my way out, so you have a good night. But if, again, that guy is a part of my immediate environment or whatever, is it workmate?
For some reason.
Yeah. Somehow, like, I'd probably deck him. Like...
Why is he even in your life?
That's
easier.
I haven't been in this situation since high school. Because I haven't been forced in a room with who I don't choose to associate with.
Yeah, so you sorted it out.
So I sorted it out. But the point is...
That's your strategy, though. Yeah. You just don't have them around.
If
it works.
I know one is you just step out of it and walk away, and the other is you respond with 5 times the aggression. And they're both valid strategies, or whatever. When I said 5 times the aggression, you could fucking be aloof and morally superior.
You beat them at their game.
Yeah, you beat them at their game.
Yeah.
But that's effectively more aggression. The game is I'm better than you, and you just play it differently. You play it with,
You become them by beating them at their game.
Yeah, you become them. If I say, look, I'm sorry, to observe such a confused, whatever. If you bring up their mental state, that's objectively true. That I wonder what insecurities are bringing up this comment. Is it because da da da? You could be absolutely right, but wait a second. Bringing up something that someone might have been beaten up as a kid, or that someone is insecure about their intelligence, or insecure about that whether they've earned their status or whatever. If you bring shit up like that makes people fundamentally distraught, that cuts to the core of their being, that maybe, when you're shattering people's illusions, if you care for them, you want to do that as gently as possible, with as little...
Not in a way that doesn't make them feel bad, but makes them be like, yeah, I really need to do something about that.
Yeah, not breaking so much of what is them that the rest of them just implodes as a side reaction, but just
you want to show them who they really are, rather than just dismantle their defenses and leave them thinking that they're nothing.
Yes.
Well, nothing. Leaving them thinking that that they're like a mess without their defenses, but actually show them how strong they really are, and how why the fuck did you need all those bullshit defenses? Throw them away. That's how you want to do it.
Yeah. But
this is something I've noticed with people who are being jerks or whatever. There's been a bunch of times when I knew I had the most brilliant comeback, and I was like, if I say this, I would demolish this person, and I'd just be about to say it. But I wouldn't be saying it from a desire to demolish them. I'd be saying it from a desire to beautifully win at that game that they started. I can outdo them in it rarely. And if I'm yes, I know exactly what to say. It then strikes me that their response is not going to be, if I win, and their response is not going to be you got me, which is what I would want.
Yeah.
Instead, what their response is likely to be is to cry or get angry and get hurt. And they're like, I don't, yeah, they were a jerk, but I don't want to make them feel like that. I just want them to kind of get what they did, and to either be impacted by it or acknowledge my superior victory. Not to take it to heart and get all sad about it, and so that's why I don't say it, because I know that's the effect it's going to have. It's interesting that I used to be really good at dealing with bullies when I was little, and it was just this natural instinct, because I just kind of feel for what they were, and later on I kind of forgot and only remembered fairly recently by comparison. But my initial strategy was it basically was just to play a game of my own, and to do it, to have them playing by my rules without them knowing it, and then have them simply reveal themselves as the bullies that they are, by just enticing them to do it one more time, except in a way that they'll get caught. So basically lure them out into doing it again in public so they get caught, and then having nothing to do with myself that could possibly get in trouble for myself. And then just by being who they are, they get their own consequences in their own world that they created, and it's like me just throwing them a beautiful mirror back to who they are. And that's I used to be really good at that. And then what stopped that was when I started believing what they were saying is true.
No.
When I didn't believe it, then I was just like, what the fuck's this bullshit? Screw you guys, here's how I'm gonna do it.
As I said, I don't know, there was a very funny thing that a friend of mine said to me once, it was very interesting. I don't know, didn't have too much trouble hitting back, but people would say shit to me, and I was like, the guy said to me years later, he's like, you know, like how the stuff we said to you. So just for fuck's sake, anyone would have a million reactions, would either aggressively attack or cry or implode or run away or whatever. You were just, I don't know, you didn't get it. It was like Teflon. Like,
That's nice. That's nice.
you know,
That's how you want to be. Yeah.
but the truth is, like, where do you get self-confidence? I believe you get it by being loved. I believe you get it, like, my dad had this clear idea in his head, you know, you want to be the best at something, like, you gotta, something, like, it doesn't matter. It could be spitting in distance, it could be marbles, it could be piano, singing, whatever, anything. You find something you like, and you excel at it. You excel at it beyond, to the level where everybody recognizes that you're brilliant at something. And to me, that was tennis when I was growing up. And, you know...
So like something that compensates for the weakness or shields you from it.
It had nothing to do with really shielding you from weaknesses or compensating you for weaknesses, but it, like, instantaneously. Okay, imagine you start off with self-confidence.
Just a question.
Yes.
So, because what some people do is they'll feel like, they feel like I got nothing, so I need some strength to be confident about, so that I can then use that confidence to then feel free of any attacks. And so what they'll do is they'll do something like tennis or whatever, be great at it, and then anytime anyone gives them shit, they'll remember, I'm great at tennis, so that you can't give me shit. And so they end up being someone who uses achievement as a source of their self-esteem in that kind of way. Whereas there's another kind of approach, which is just, I love tennis, I love this, I love that, and I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it with excellence, because that's how I do it. I play well. Play well.
See, in my dad's mentality, part of it would have probably been the prior. I don't know what he was thinking. To me, I was doing it because I love it.
Well, that's the best. That's the best. Just do it because you love it.
And the
other stuff,
the confidence was like a side effect.
Yeah, that's it. It's gravy.
It's like, but like my dad knew that. You see what I mean? Like, not many parents out there, like, you know, he understood a couple of real fundamentals, you know, like the advice he gave that I didn't really take. But again, like, just think about this. It's like, pick something that you love doing. Like anything, whatever. Find something you're passionate about. And he's like, and then excel at it. Beyond any of your peers. Just excel at it. And if everybody, you know, like whatever, if you were playing football, if you were doing graffiti, everybody in school, just think about it. You're the kid that everybody in school, everybody in your immediate environment looks at that guy, and whether they say it every day or whether they just think it, but you see it in the eyes of everyone that you interact with. There is this, like, general knowledge and acknowledgement that, oh man, like, Sergio's, like, brilliant at graffiti. Fuck, it's like, did you see the shit he drew? That even if people, like, hate you a little bit on the inside out of some jealousy, there's a certain respect and reverence that you get, that you do, that's just
you're at the top of what you're doing. You got it. You're a master of it.
So like I said, man, my dad thought of it that way. I never did as a kid, and it was always his idea. I started skiing very young, and it was skiing to me until I got out of Bosnia because of the war, and it was tennis. But my sister was the best at her age in the country at skiing, and this girl probably never in her life thought that anything was too much of a challenge. Because, okay, like, the one thing I truly committed myself to, I was brilliant at. You know?
Yeah.
Not the best in the world, but right up there, you know, in the 0.1%. If I can be in the 0.1%, or in the whatever, in the 1% when it comes to skiing, man, I could be in the 1% in anything I put my mind to. You know, like, it's almost like there's a formula for excellence, and it's almost like you you achieve it in one thing, you can transfer half those skills to something else, and you get like this massive head start in whatever you're into. And it
Right.
And talking about self-esteem, man, again, you know, I'm looking at like what are these kids fucking saying? Like, I find the school stuff easy, and I'm a god at this one thing I love doing, and I'm awesome. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it just...
There is that kind of sense that I agree with you. I had a kind of sense of that as well with... I just didn't credit it because no one else seemed to value the thing that I was good at. The thing that I was best at was being observant, picking out just the right details to really get what I was looking at, and to come up with original ideas based on it that were well integrated. So to take a whole bunch of information, so to be a really keen observer, take information from many different areas, and combine it into a whole integrated package that works from start to finish seamlessly.
Good at getting it.
And ideas. It was the realm of ideas. And it was something that I became masterful at, except that there's something that's not satisfying about ideas by themselves. They, I believe, this is why I think writers and artists are often unhappy, because they are dealing with the realm of ideas, but I think that it's much better to actually just express the ideas in reality, if that makes sense. So like if you have some idea that ends up being manifested as an idea for a movie character or something who does something incredible and epic and amazing, or just something really good, or just something cool, it would be a real tragedy for the person who wrote such a character in such detail to not actually go and do the same damn things in their own life. Like some character who does something that's amazing in a school. Why don't you actually just go do something amazing in a school first before you make a movie about it?
I've had that idea, you know. I had an idea about a book in my mind. And the book in my mind is entirely, funnily enough, based on looking at the world as it is, projecting it 10, 20, 30 years into some type of a dystopian yet hopeful future, and then having all these parables and allegories to what's going on. Like, almost like trying to write a recipe for a better world into... This is what happens if these, you know, in a sense, you have a world, one is like two dystopias between East and West, and the West gets, like, collapsed under some type of mega hierarchical military dictatorship, you know, and sort of the opposite of the Cold War happens, but the East becomes some type of transhumanistic, moneyless utopia where it's all about it's all like a calculating algorithm giving everybody what they need, but they're losing. Kind of like
Venus Project
gone wrong. Like Venus Project, but even worse, gone wrong. Like there's a point where everything is rationalized in terms of quantifiables and
oh my god, I never got this. Okay, sorry, keep going. Yeah.
And you know, there's no notion of feeling, spirit, emotion, and all that, and so like you have these two dystopias battle each other, and then there's a neutral ground in the middle where a few wild surviving humans are trying to figure out how to get like these two dystopias to cancel each other out to create some semblance of a free world, and that type of battle, because that's what seems to happen. Like the allegory would be that very, very rarely there's choices between good and bad, and yet people split all these different issues into two extreme ends, and one is the allegory of the extremely corporatocratic, you know, hierarchical government, hierarchical corporation, money flowing to the top, small elite controlling everything through a hierarchy, right? And the other one is the socialist, communist visionary going, you know, we are going to create a resource management system where we give everybody the fair share of exactly what they want, what they need, and how they need. But like, well, what about people's what about people's free will, desires, and rationality to express themselves and manifest some other reality which is, suboptimal or non-rational? You see what I mean? Like, one
free and possibly less efficient. Not free, but more efficient.
Yeah, and it
which
manifests,
I think is not really the split, but yes. I think it's actually
the
free
dystopian,
and efficient, and not free and not efficient. But they that's not the sales pitch of control.
The reality that happens in sort of like the Venus Project, the socialist, the thing is, because there's a worship of technology that they turn to transhumanism, and then they...
Well, they have a robot running their society. What does that look like?
Yeah, everybody's plugged in to computers, right? And the computers would control their minds, but in a very, very simplistic way. Very simplistic way. And how the computers would control their minds would be that they couldn't actually read anyone's mind. You could not download a consciousness. You couldn't do any of that. But what it could do is get some data from the five senses, and every time you see
This isn't the Zeitgeist Project. This is your movie, right?
No. This is my book.
Okay, good. I was worried about one of these. I was like, are these Zeitgeist is really that? What? No, sure, continue.
No, but I would imagine in a way that this is basically, it's not at all. It's think about Zeitgeist and then think about transhumanism. More like, it's like Zeitgeist is... Sorry, think about Venus Project. I'm not going to say Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist is like a more broad set of ideas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there that are completely anti... central control. But
I just
like
know
Venus
the
Project.
idea.
Venus Project. So think of Venus Project and think of transhumanism merging into one system. And it's very, very possible because this is like two principally highly popular ideas in futuristically minded people.
Yes, This song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King,
aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment indeed.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing recede. Due to the media propaganda killing my creed. Or what don't kill me make me stronger, feeling strength when I bleed. Fighting for interest and forward to attach the feet. They try to sell you anything in this world, nothing for free. Land, air, fire, and water, they keep up in the ante. While the anti-proletariat told the powers to be. But we keep fighting, surviving and thriving, recycling and rhyming. We constantly inclining, we see through the lying and prying. They tactically keep trying to keep you from asking the why.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King,
aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment indeed.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
possibilities, creating organizations like Aspire to Be, inspiring young minds to see, building life skills, nurturing creativity, fulfilling the youth's basic needs, listening actively, teaching the tools to succeed, positive role models, we plant the seed, the roots drink the water which feed the trees, someone help me, giving back is my responsibility.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world, like Gandhi live for peace.
Aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs, like Martin Luther King.
Aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me. Spider